Welcome, everyone. Rich and I are so excited to be here with you for about 4 hours today. We will obviously take a break. I try to have us take about a 5-minute break around the top of the hour, every hour, because I don't know about you, but I need a break. We need to at least stand up for a couple of minutes and just reset. So at any rate, if any of you, but here's the deal. When I say at the top of the hour, or as close to the top of the hour, you get to pick whether it's a 5-minute or a 10-minute break. So the first person who says they either want it 5 minutes or 10 minutes, you get the 5 minutes or the 10 minutes, okay? We're going to be talking about Lance. God bless you, Lance. Okay, we're going to take a 10-minute break and we'll be back in a few minutes. You're on mute, Lance. What you said would have been witty, but you're on mute. So unmute yourself.
I said I was the first.
Yes, you are the first. So 10 minutes. I love it. This is beautiful. At any rate, one of the things that we want to make sure we clarify as we go through is what the goals for our time are today and what we're going to be working through. We're going to be primarily focused today on two specific components of intelligent leadership. And those are the STLI 360 and the Leader Watch survey. And the Leader Watch, as many of you may already know, is kind of a subset, a mini version of the STLI 360. And yet every other part of what we're doing is so integral to the Leader Watch survey. We are not going to be teaching the CPI 260 or the IOP today. However, one of the things we want to make sure everybody understands is a framework of it. So what we're doing is we're actually recording videos that you'll be getting the link to that'll give you some insights into how you'll be covering the CPI 260 and the IOP. And what we've put together is a very high-level document for you that just is a quick introduction to it. And I'm going to share a couple of slides, but we're not going to go through those in detail as assessments today. Rich, is there anything you'd like to complement that with?
No, you're good.
All right. Is that document something you want to share in the chat, or do we want to email it to them after?
I'm sorry, Sue, which document was that? I was answering some questions.
I had sent you a document to see if you wanted to include it this morning or not. And at your convenience, I'll let you take a look at it. And then one way or another, we're going to get it to you. So let's check the chat real quick and then we will.
Yeah, I will. I'll send that out in chat here in just a few minutes. So
great. All righty.
You got to give me a break. It's 6 a.m. here. I'm just catching up.
Since 3:30 still. I've already had breakfast. It's worked out. It's been, all right. At any rate, I'm going to go ahead and get right into it. Here's the other thing for all of you. This is not about me and not about Rich. This is about you. We have a limited amount of time today. So it's reasonable that some of you may have questions that either come up today or that come up afterward that we don't get completely resolved. That doesn't mean that we're not going to commit ourselves to getting you the answers. Okay. You already know when there's a larger group, we may not be able to get to every one of the answers. And we want to make sure that we're supporting you throughout the entire coaching journey. So if you end today and you still have questions, which is reasonable because you're being introduced to several brand new things, know that we're here for you and we'll answer questions directly. Many of you are already a part of the WhatsApp group. And if we ever need to have like little workshops and things like that, we can do those. And we've encouraged you to create, and some of you have, and it's so wonderful, your own cohorts. So you can be practicing with each other before you're working with the Santander executives. So all of these things are there for you. Know that you and I are all in this together. Rich, we're all here with and for each other. And some of you are super, super, super expert and knowledgeable in these, and we want to leverage your expertise as well. So we're not coming to you with every single answer for everything that will possibly be there. With all of that being said, let me do a couple of high-level comments about the CPI 260 and the IOP. And Rich, you're monitoring the chat?
Yes, I am.
Beautiful. I am very good at single tasking. I am not as great at multitasking, especially when I have a slideshow up, because I can't see everything. All right, here we go.
Let me let you do that, Sue. There you go.
Thank you. All right. There, no ho ho. This makes it good. All right. In the context of, and I don't know about any of you, but I've always noticed that the Zoom toolbar moves to exactly what I want to look at the things. All right. In the MLEI introduction, we talk a little bit about the relationship between the Myers-Briggs typing inventory and the MLEI, and then the CPI 260 and the IOPT. And what is helpful for you, and by the way, anything I'm showing you today, you have access to in the level 2 Google Drive folder. And so every single thing here, because I'm not covering all the details of all the content for everything we'll be going through today. All right. When we talk about what we focus on with whether it's the MLEI or any of the other assessments that we're doing, is these inform but not define people. And so when we have assessments, they look at different areas of ways to inform that are going to help us identify with our coaching clients things they can relate to, or that they were never made aware of, and they're going, oh my gracious, yes, I see that. Because what we're looking at them doing is not as much, okay, here's what you're doing, let's build on just that. It's here's who you can be, which gets back to that core purpose statement, is that we're igniting in them who they can be. And so these assessments that inform them are ways that we can work together to ignite what they can be doing. And there may have not been a context to where some of the things they're becoming aware of now were important. You're working with executives who some of them are moving into a new role, or they've got a new lens into what they're doing, or you're making them aware of something they hadn't been aware of before. So all of these things are ways that they're being informed of what their potential and possibilities are. And the exciting part of that as coaches is that when we frame it for them through the lens of what they're being measured on and held accountable for, it helps them take some of these assessments that have quite a breadth of available information and help them hone down today what's valuable. And then as they continue their coaching journey, like after that first leader watch, as they continue their journey, they'll be able to come back and gather even more valuable information from it. So when we talk about the MLEI, that and we've already gone through those pieces of it, but we're talking about their self-concept, their character, their values, their makeup, and identifying both the areas where they've got great opportunity for growth and derailers potentially they may not even be aware of, and areas that they've underutilized because they didn't need to before, or they didn't know they had the potential and power for it. So all of these are informing them. And when we look at, there's the Hogan and there's the CPI 260 and there's the IOP. So in all of these, they measure these intrapersonal characteristics. And what they're doing is measuring them in a variety of different ways. So one is not right, one is not wrong. And when we talk with our coaching clients about them, one of the things that you're going to choose, I'm going to tell you my preference from my experiences and give you the opportunity to choose. I prefer to look at their assessments first, use something that they wouldn't relate to. So not when we're going to talk about the 360 and when we've talked about the MLEI, not their own where they would immediately go to a place of judgment. But when we're talking with them about what the assessments are meant to do for them, and they can be looking at how it informs them, then they're more open with curiosity. We want them to look at them with curiosity for what else is possible, not judgment of, oh, I'm not this or I'm not that. Because the way that we ignite them, which is what everything that we're working on with intelligent leadership is toward igniting their potential and possibilities. We want to help them be in the best place to do that. We're going to share with you a document that gives a little bit more information about the components of the CPI 260. And I believe some of you here are already certified in it. So there are some of you, by like a show of hands, how many of you have ever used either an IOPT or a CPI 260 in other coaching work? Okay, we've got a few of you who have. Okay, very good. So as we go through here and as we go down the road, when you're working with this, if you've ever got questions, whether it's in the WhatsApp or whether you're reaching out to us directly, we're here to support you in the learning of those. Our primary focus for the rest of the time together is going to be on the STLI 360 and the Leader Watch surveys. Are we good? Oh, sorry, let me turn my reactions off. I have my reactions and they, there we go. So I'll give this to you now and now I'll turn them off so that we're being super professional here. Okay. Let me get us going with the STLI 360. All right. Is everybody able to see John's smiling face there? Happy to be with us today? All right. The Strategic Tactical Leadership Inventory is one of the most powerful assessments of what intelligent leadership is, because it's a huge inflection point that then generates inflection points that last during and even after the coaching journey is done specifically. John's got his 50 Laws of Intelligent Leadership, which I believe all of you have. And if you don't, put something into the chat. We have it up on the Google Drive folder so you can have access to all of them. But the STLI 360 is one of the most powerful examples of why law number 20 is so important. If we give someone an answer before we've helped with the diagnosis and gotten that really clear, in medicine, it's called malpractice. In coaching, it's called missing the mark, underserving the opportunity, or being disrespectful of what the potential and possibilities are. And so the STLI 360, in combination with the other components that we're working with, are creating the diagnosis. The individual leadership development plan is the prescription that comes from the core purpose statement, the MLEI, the STLI 360, and goes through the lens of what our coaching clients are being measured on and held accountable for. So it's extremely important that we work with our coaching clients to be in the very best position themselves and to put their other stakeholders in the survey process in the very best position to provide the most valuable insights so that this becomes a really rich resource for them for a long time. When we look at the pillars, and again, as I talk about the pillars, I think of them really as a continuous evolution. So while we look at them as the 7 different pillars, and we're working now with how we're being perceived. So it's the assessment part that's the outer core assessment. This is something that's not a one and done. This is an inflection point that they're going to continue to come back through and cycle through over and over and over again. And the results, for example, of Leader Watch are going to inform coming back to it and updating the ILDP. And so it is so transformational in everything that continues from this point on. However, as with everything else, it's anchored in the core purpose statement. So this STLI 360 is another inflection point for us to validate with our coaching client that their core purpose statement, because they're still evolving with it, they've got it, but it may not be completely ready, that their core purpose statement is supporting them, and they might find gaps in their core purpose statement as they look at their 360. When we talk about the wheel of intelligent leadership, which I share this with my clients every single time we have a session, I share the pillars and I share this as reminders and reinforcements that we can't see what's in orange. I mean, other people can't see what's in orange. People in front of us don't see what's in orange. However, what's in orange, the 3 different shades of orange here, are inform what we see on the outside. So they all work together to inform. And if you think of these as spinning wheels, they're not static. They're not stuck in the same place. So values and thoughts aren't only associated with driving for results, critical thinking, and decision making. If you think of all of these together, they impact all of the way that we're seen externally. That's why the STLI 360 was designed the way it is, because it focuses on these 9 outer core competencies. Whether or not this is something that you choose to share with your coaching clients or not, the takeaway for you with this is that what John created is not putting his name on a traditional 360 history. They've been used for many, many years. And what they are is to get those lenses that other people have into who we are. But what John did is he went out and got other experts, and they came together through the lens of what intelligent leadership is, with the inner core competencies feeding the outer core competencies. And how would they create an assessment, a 360 assessment that supports getting clarity on those outer core assessments so that they inform how the work is being done with the inner core and how it supports the work being done on the outer core, and they all work in harmony together. Most importantly, and this is one of the things that is great in conversations as you're introducing it with your coaching clients, is these 9 outer core competencies, the 9 constructs, each have 8 unique questions that are specific to that particular outer core competency. And I'll stop share here. This is a big differentiator, and not that you need more differentiators for the value of intelligent leadership. However, one of the things that does differentiate it is that it takes each aspect, and you're working with your coaching client on isolating each of these so that you're able to hone in more specifically, prioritize more directly. And when you create that individual leadership development plan, you're able to get very, very specific on it, which makes it easier for you to work with the coaching client, sorry. When it makes it easier for your coaching client to be working with their team and sharing with them, these are the things that I'm working with. These are the reasons why. These are my goals. And they've got the clarity of it. And the stakeholders, because the stakeholders are there from the very beginning of the journey, all the way through Leader Watch and coming back through multiple times, the stakeholders have a more clear idea of how to be supporting them by validating that they're doing the right thing or identifying areas they could continue to grow. So it's incredibly important that in the 360 review, these 9 outer core competencies have unique questions specific to them. This also is part of the reason it's so incredibly important for us to work with our coaching clients on how they select their stakeholders, and we're going to get to that in a little bit, and how they continue to communicate with their stakeholders throughout the journey. And you're going to see this more and more and more, that the stakeholders who are doing the survey know before they do it, this is not just a one and done, I got to answer all these questions and I'm done with it. We want them in for the long haul, and we want them to feel good about that. All right. When we talk about this valuable stakeholder pool, what we're helping our coaching clients understand is that just like we've learned, different people, and you'll see this so clearly when we walk through some of these 360 sample reports, when we have different relationships with different people who we're working with. They see us differently. And especially if we are, for example, new in a role, or if we have other team members, or whether it's people who are working with internally or externally. And so the things that are very important in the stakeholder pool is that the stakeholder pool is prepared to be in their best position. So we've selected the right pool. Although we want it to always stay the same people, we know that in companies, sometimes that's going to change. But we want the stakeholder pool. They're so valuable in this process. We want to make sure that they're being selected responsibly. And we want to prepare the stakeholder pool. And let me just stop here. We're going to talk about this multiple times. We want to do everything we possibly can to help our stakeholder pool know what providing anonymous comments is and how we support them with that. Because if they don't feel confident or safe making anonymous comments, they're not going to make them. And sometimes that's the most valuable part is missing because they're not sharing it. So we're going to talk about ways to do that so that that's there. Okay.
Hey, Sue.
Yes, sir.
So interesting point that you're putting in here. I had this very conversation yesterday with a COO of a company that we've been doing an ILOA with, and he wanted to get on a call and ask, "What is this Leader Watch? How do I fill this out?" Turns out that the people that he had listed him as a stakeholder, he didn't really know. He was new to the company as far as his role, didn't know really know these people, and did not know how to react to this. So we had that very conversation. So again, he said, I haven't really been aware of their journey through this. And so yeah, great point. You make sure when you work with your folks, they're selecting stakeholders that are critical to their journey, that are being able to monitor that journey, and so we can get the right feedback on that.
And
So-
Rich, to your point, one of the what's so helpful with that is when one of the things that you as a coach are going to be doing with your coaching clients is you're also going to be introducing that this is a possibility. We understand when you're selecting your stakeholders that they may not stay through the entire journey. Someone may get promoted, they may leave the company, whatever it is. Let us know when you have, for example, if you've had a COO, like Rich mentioned, who is one of your stakeholders in the original 360 and they no longer are there, they've moved on. What we want to do in the coaching relationship is your coaching client comes to you and says, hey, there is a new stakeholder who is going to be the new COO, who I want to make sure that we get them caught up on that. And so we can go back, you can have your coaching client show them their STLI 360 survey results if they choose to. They can go through their ILDP with the COO or whatever that role is. They're working through it so that new person is able to be more right in alignment. They're going to know what the core purpose statement is. They're going to understand the components of it, and they get caught up so that by the time that Leader Watch survey comes out, or the next one comes out, whatever status it is, that person who replaced someone else is as up to speed as possible. So excellent point, Rich. Thank you for raising that.
Rocio has a quick question. She's had her hand up for a minute.
Yes, sorry, but I am a little bit confused through. You started introducing CPI 260 and then you moved to STLI 360 and then you move it to stakeholders. Who needs stakeholders? Only the 360 or the CPI? And what is going to be the focus of today's session?
Excellent, excellent. Thank you very much for raising that. And I apologize because it was not my goal to have confusion. Let me go ahead and restate that. We introduced the fact that we're going to be providing you information about the CPI 260 and the IOPT, but we are not going to focus on either of those assessments in the time we have together today. They are valuable components of the intelligent leadership journey. We're recording videos for you with information about them. What we've learned is that we're so respectful of your time and that we're already having you invest a significant amount of time. We felt that it would be well served if we created videos that you could watch on demand, that would give you insights. And then we can be working with answering questions and things like that in support of that. So the focus of our day today is the STLI 360 and the Leader Watch survey, both of which have a predominant relationship, a very important relationship with stakeholders throughout the journey. So thank you very much. I appreciate you doing that. And is there anybody else who's not clear? Thank you very much for doing that, Rocio. All right. So what I am not going to invest a tremendous amount of time with, because you have access to all of these, is some of the information that's really obvious to you. You know, and John talks about what's measured, it will improve. These are some of the important components of the 360, but they're very straightforward. I'm going to focus on some of the other predominant things today. And again, if any place you have questions, A, you've got all of this content, and B, we're always here for you. So a variety of these different components of this are things that you can become easily aware of. One of the things, though, right here, it minimizes self-deception. And this is because it's how others perceive us. And we're going to touch on this multiple times during our time together. One of the things that, as you've already gotten into, let me stop share again for just a moment, in the conversations that you've had, and all of you are so experienced, so you already know this, you're already hearing where your coaching client might have self-deception, where they might not see themselves with clarity. And a big part of what intelligent leadership does is it just gets rid of all of that. And sometimes, as you already know, that can be very emotional. You'll have people who have resistance to it. Other people step right into it. So these are the 360 process has a lot of inflection points toward those unconscious or hidden or areas that our coaching clients may be resistant to. And this is going to uncover them as they're perceived by others. So you're already going to know, and this is where, you know, at your level, you know how to ask the questions, because they're going to be coming up in here. All right. It is also very valuable when on the outer core for identifying with your coaching client how they have progressed. And there are oftentimes going to be conversations you'll have based on a comment someone has made. These comments you're going to see are so rich in the potential they have. Comments they've made that help the coaching client recognize that they have already created a framework and modeled doing something they're going to be doing even more. And so it gives them a reference reservoir that they can build from as they move forward. All right. We're going to walk through each of these things. So it shows a variety of different things. And what I do a lot of, and what I encourage you in cohorts to do, is to take the MLEI, the core, we've got BN, take BN's core purpose statement, the MLEI, the 360, take those assessments and look at them through all of these different lenses and practice with them to what I call pulling the threads. So we're looking the average across how everybody is. How does everybody see you as an average? How are they seen with each group? What are the average of the questions? Where are they with each of the competencies? Where do they stand with a rated group, or how are they with their peers versus their direct reports, indirect reports, with their the anonymous open-ended comments? This is where you'll see, and what you're going to see in the surveys, the completed ones that you read through, you'll see where some people have been coached more effectively to give anonymous comments. And we're going to talk a good bit about that. All right. Then these two are so valuable. The average ratings for the top 10. So you can see if there's a predominant area they have really great skills in, and a predominant area that they either haven't had the need to step into or have not effectively yet stepped into. Blind spots. And these are so, because the sex, you know, when there are when we talk about red flags and with self-deception, these are things that show very clearly that, hey, you may think this, but others don't. And then hidden strengths, where people have underserved themselves because they don't recognize or they don't feel that they should say something. So it allows them to step into owning the fact that they're seen even more impactfully than they've recognized in the past. And what we're focusing on a lot through the 360 and all the way through with Leader Watch and with the coaching session after ILDP, that coaching process for the next few months, is that they've got one intent and they got one impact, and they're often not aligned. And what our vision is to help them so that their intent and their impact are aligned. And when they get that aligned and it's measured in the Leader Watch and says, great job, then you go back into that ILDP, harness more things, look at the 360 for information, go back, get the intent and impact aligned. And that's where all of them go. So, and this is another way where all of the assessments are really tied together. When we are introducing the concept of what a 360 is, it's very important that the buy-in is there for everyone in the process. And the concept with Santander is a little bit different because the executive team has already said, you're bought in. So everyone who you're working with is bought in. And the process for them, now, if you're working with a coaching client and that's not the case, if it's external to this, then it's very important to get everyone in alignment with this from the very beginning. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be supporting the fact and strengthening the fact that they made the wisest choice by being bought in. And so we're going to be working on continuously developing trust, which we are going to be doing from the very first conversation we have. And this is a very good inflection point for our relationship with our coaching client, because they're stepping into a great space of vulnerability, and how we support them in that will really help them position how they're going to move that into their individual leadership development plan. There are coaching clients who are going to see things in their 360 survey that they're not happy about. They don't agree with, they're frustrated with, things like that. So how we help them manage that so that it becomes a powerful place for them to have the potential to move forward is really going to be something that we're going to be doing to strengthen their long-term relationship. And this is why it's great to know where all of it fits in. All right. We've already hit on those. All right. Huge point right here on confidentiality. Huge point. This is basically all we need to say, but we're going to say more. If confidentiality can't be protected, don't do the assessment. Working with Santander, the lens that everyone is going to have is already that there's going to be confidentiality. While not all of the stakeholders are going to be a part of this, many of them are, and they're familiar with this whole project. Trusting in the confidentiality of this is incredibly important. And so one of the things that is incumbent on us, it's incumbent on us to help our coaching clients with, to know how to do. It's incumbent on us to help our coaching clients be able to prepare their stakeholders and have individual conversations with them or collaborative conversations with them as a group about how to create anonymous comments. It's also very important for us to have the coaching client share with the stakeholder that if the stakeholder doesn't feel confident, there's a valuable piece of information, there's a valuable comment they want to make, they don't know how to do it anonymously, they can reach out to you and you will support them. You'll either capture that information and it won't go into the survey, or you'll teach them how to be able to make that comment from a place of anonymity. Okay. So this is where, again, we're strengthening our relationship with our coaching clients, and anonymity is incredibly important. part of what you can see is you can absolutely practice this. This is a great thing. And again, you're experienced coaches, so you've definitely worked with confidentiality in the past. We raise it very intentionally in this process. So everyone who is a part of the process knows that we prioritize it and we prepare people for it and we support them with it. We're going to go through these different outer core competencies and the questions as we walk through it. When we talk about the expectation of the amount of time it's going to take, because like the CPI 260 has quite a few questions and it takes longer. This is 72 total questions with the 9 different outer core competencies and the behavior-based questions that are specific to each of those outer core competencies. This is again where showing them the wheel is very helpful for them to understand it. This is an example. You're going to get to see this in a few minutes. We're going to be walking through them. These are just examples of what they are. So at a high level, now let me just stop share for just a moment. I didn't move through those last ones because you're going to have these as a reference to go back to. We're going to be walking through the reports in detail. I want to make sure we've got the time for that. So I'll answer any question you've got about those. I'm not just going beyond them. Okay. All right. When we talk about the 360, we want to be able to prepare our coaching client and the stakeholders to give the most impactful responses. So when we talk about this for our stakeholders, don't be humble and don't be arrogant. We talked about blind spots and hidden strengths. One of the things as coaches you can be doing is giving examples, and in your conversations be listening for with your coaching clients where you can hear that they're being humble or they are overrating themselves. And as a part of the coaching process, even before the 360, we have the opportunity to be raising things to their level of awareness. Some of the things that through this process they're going to become aware of are things that they just aren't aware of. Some of them are things that were trained into them. Humility is often trained into people, and they feel like, well, I shouldn't say I'm that good. Well, this is the time to be very, very clear. And since it's anonymous, it's not like you're in a room of people and you're saying it and somebody's going to go, oh, listen to them talking about themselves. And on the other side, don't overvalue yourself. If there's an area where you've got a gap, go ahead and be candid about it, because that's where we're going to have the most opportunity to move forward, because you've recognized something and others are in alignment with it. Because if it doesn't show up as a blind spot or a hidden strength, that means that you and the other stakeholders are in alignment with it. So our goal is we prepare our coaching client to be as much in alignment with their stakeholders as possible. In other words, if there were no blind spots and no hidden strengths, they'd be fully in alignment with how they're perceived by others. And so we want to help them have clarity on that and the importance of why they want to be as candid as possible. This is another reason why I walk through the surveys in detail, somebody else's survey, with my coaching client, even before they do the survey, so they see its potential and its possibilities. The stakeholder pool for each one of your coaching clients begins in your first conversation with your coaching client. You're listening to what they're talking about as you're asking questions. You're listening to the things they're saying and they're not saying. You're asking questions about the teams who they work with, the individuals they work with, their leader, and getting information. And this is not a popularity contest. One of the things that is absolutely something that all of us would like to do is to have our stakeholders be, people, well, they're going to give me a really good review. I'm going to show you an example, and we call it your mom. Let me just come back to you for a minute. One of the examples that you have access to in the drive that you could be showing your coaching clients is someone who just went around and goes, yep, 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 yep. Well, that's worthless. So we want everybody to be in the best position not to do that. We want them to know exactly what to do so that their input becomes really, really valuable to the outcome. And so having these assessments that have already been completed and they can see what it looks like if you're not being intentional about the responses is going to be very helpful for your stakeholders and for your coaching client to understand the importance of what they're doing. So based on what your coaching client is being measured on and held accountable for, you're going to work with them to determine the stakeholder pool. And one of the things that, and Rich, what you may choose to do is to put the most current, it's on the Google Drive, but in case anybody just wants to take a look at it, the most current spreadsheet you'll be doing when you're filling that out with your coaching clients for the different rater groups. And you're going to be working with them to identify who these people are. And what Rich did a beautiful job of, he is an Excel guru, is he then created in the background the document that converts that so that it can go into the tool that we're using. So when we are working with the stakeholders and we're working with the pool, the other thing, and we've mentioned this before already, is that we want the expectation of our stakeholders and our coaching clients to be selecting stakeholders who are in it for the long haul, who are going to be committed to supporting directly and indirectly their coaching, your coaching clients' growth and development, because that LeaderWatch survey is going back to those same stakeholders around 3 months down the road and then around 6 months down the road. And we want them to understand the importance. And the other part of this, when this conversation is conducted before the survey begins, the stakeholders know we respect their contribution. We're not just asking them to give some insights and then off we go. We see them as part of the journey of the coaching client. We're asking for their insights in the beginning. We're asking them to be checking in and supporting our coaching client down the road. We're asking for them to share their insights on the development of the coaching client. So they see that we value them as well as the coaching client. And this is an important distinction between how some 360 surveys are done. They're conducted, and then you don't go back to the stakeholders again. So the stakeholders become a part of the relationship. And this is very, very intentional for intelligent leadership for the continued growth. What I have learned is that each of you are going to work with your coaching client on your own questions you believe based on the coaching client are going to be most valuable in the selection of the stakeholder pool. So there are some that we identified as a framework. Each engagement and each coaching client is going to be different. And the potential stakeholders are their managers, their peers, direct reports, and managers. This term is different culturally and globally. It's who they report to. So whoever they report to, whoever they work with, whoever reports directly to them. Mentors, people who are influential but not directly associated with their performance. Internal and external customers, vendors, clients, partners, and board members. So there's a wide range, and this is going to vary based on the coaching client you have. That pool is going to vary based on who they are. And that's why some of the questions are going to vary. All right. Very important point here. This is where my personality comes out. Do not use the sample stakeholder email. Use the stakeholder email as a framework with your coaching client to customize it specifically and directly for them. Because, and if we were a smaller group, I would have you tell me, and I already know you know the answer, but I'm going to reinforce it. The reason we want this to be customized is if we're going to ask someone to invest of themselves for maybe an hour now, throughout the coaching journey, then back with LeaderWatch for a few minutes, we want to show them that we respect them, that we respect the investment, their investment of time, and how we're going to honor that. So the customization, and I always encourage also a personal communication. There's the email, but I also always encourage each coach and client who is having stakeholders participate in the 360, that they have a one-on-one conversation with each one of them to thank them, to ask any questions, things like that. So when you do the sample email, make sure it gets customized. And I'm sure I am speaking to the choir with all of that. All right. We're going to manage the processing of the survey. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to be using the spreadsheet that is either in the chat or will get emailed to you, but you're going to be using that spreadsheet to put the information in that goes into the assessment. The assessments, we're going to launch the survey. And when we set it up, they usually run about 2 weeks, although we can have it run longer if it needs to. Things that you'll take into account when you get ready to launch the survey is you're not at year end or quarter end. There's no major project with a deadline. So you've already worked with your coaching client to identify that this is going to be a good time to go ahead and do the survey, that in the business it's a good time, so that your stakeholders have the capacity to be working on it. And then we'll send out reminders to them and work with all of that. So we'll support you throughout the entire process of that. And then we have the survey results go directly back to you. And then you're going to be reviewing it with the MLEI and what they're being measured on and held accountable for before you have the review with them. And when we talk about receiving feedback, and all of you are also, again, very familiar with all of these are things you've already been listening for in the conversations you've been having with your coaching client, and you're aware of some of these. Raising these to your level of awareness and in anticipation for them is that when there are any of these that are raised by your coaching client, you've already got the response for it. You've already got the next couple of questions, the path to take them down. For example, when they only want to focus on their supervisor's ratings, when you've walked them through something that's not theirs and you've taught them how to look for it, you see that they recognize all of the different components of it, not just that. What we want them to do is to be able to be open to it. And I'm very specific in sharing this with them. We want you to be in a place of curiosity, not judgment. And that's something where some of them, this is going to be part of their coaching development, is they're so stuck in judgment that it's harder for them to see potential and possibilities. The brilliance of the 360 is it gives so many different insights to it. It's very hard to maintain that position of judgment. All right. Now, whether it's us having a workshop on it, whether it's you having a workshop in your cohort on WhatsApp, no matter what you want to do, know that we're always there to, like, let's take one of these questions, or let's take an issue that comes up and let's come up with some potential solutions or other questions that we can ask. And so brainstorming together is a powerful way that we collaboratively work through this. And since we're such a wonderful group, and whether it's by country or you're just, gathering a few people together, we can walk through so many of these. So this is one of the things that's most important about what we're going to be doing from now on, which is part of intelligent leadership is, all right, we're here being coached because we have one intent and we're great with our intent. However, our behaviors, which may be clouded by unconscious patterns of belief, maybe weakened because we're new in a role and we don't already have a reference reservoir, we haven't already done this, or we may be stuck in a rut of what we believe to be true and what we've done before and it's worked in the past, and we're resistant to trying new things. So our behaviors are not in alignment with taking what our intent is and getting to the impact that is our goal of what we're being measured on and held accountable for. And so all of the assessments raise these to our level of awareness. The individual leadership development plan brings them all together. You prioritize them. And then the coaching experience for that next few months is focusing on getting intent through behaviors to impact that's in alignment. Our inner core and our outer core are absolutely connected. And they're connected because our head and our heart are connected. So how we feel about ourselves, often how we feel about ourselves is clouded by judgment of others. And a big part of what we're doing with the MLEI is inviting us into being able to create a healthier new belief pattern. And then the external part of it, that's how we show up, the strength and vibrancy of our inner core, as we're able to then align it through what we're doing toward how we're showing up externally, has that relationship tied together very closely. Now, I think we're going into a whole nother piece. This would be a great place if you wanted to take, Lance has already said 10 minutes, but if you wanted to take a short break, or if you've got any questions that you'd like to go through before we go into the interpreting it, why don't we do that? Does anybody have, and Rich, thank you, because I'm not checking the chat. Are there any outstanding questions that anyone would like to address with the group? Or would you like to go ahead and take Lance said 10-minute break. We'll take a 10-minute break and then move forward. Rich?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. So I have 8:52. So why don't we collaborate just a little bit? Why don't we come in at the top of the hour so whatever the top of the hour is for you. So that's about 8 minutes. All right. Oh, Jose's got his reactions on. All right. Oh, wow. I'm sorry. I got to get my glasses up there. Good job with the reactions. All right. See you at the top of the hour, everybody. I like to show my coaching client completed reports before they do them, is so they understand, as they're talking to their stakeholders, the importance of having the communications with their stakeholders to know how important it is for them to participate. Also, in the selection of who they are, to understand how they're going to be used, so that they see what the impact of those choices is going to be before they start selecting their stakeholders. So one of the things that the report shows is, here are the different rater groups, here is how many were invited to participate, and here's how many responded. And in the course of the process, when you go through the 360, we send the survey out. Then some people are going to complete it. Some people are in process. We send mass reminders to the ones who haven't completed it. We reach out to the coach to encourage the coaching client to communicate to the stakeholders to get the reports done. So we're trying to do everything we can to get everybody, so that the number of respondents and the number of those invited to participate are equal. The more prepared the stakeholders are, the easier it's going to be for that to be done. And when we've figured out what time of, if it's a good time in business to do it, it's going to make it easier for them to make that investment of time. And then the rating scales, shows what the different rating scale is, from nothing to 5. Then we talk about the different competencies. So the summaries, so the outer core competency, for example, of critical thinking, here's what all the raters said, and the direct reports and the peers. So we've got it, the total of all of those. And then the overall rating completely of what they are. And then we're going to have different categories, like this, the average, high, and low. And we're going to walk through these, right? Here is the spider graph, and we've got a new way of looking at that. But to see it from this example in the competency, you can see the importance of the stakeholders giving their insights, because this shows you exactly how they all rated. It shows where there are gaps, shows where there's a lot of alignment. And when I show you one of the surveys, you see, it's actually the green. When you see that it's all around the outer edge, you see that it doesn't help you do anything at all. So when we prepare our coach and client to work with the stakeholders to participate and do it accurately, it's so that these are the kinds of things that they're going to see. And then as we identified 72 unique and specific questions that are different, so that each one of them is going to be identified, and how many of the respondents answered it. All right, so here we go. The way I talked about blind spots and hidden strengths. It's a blind spot. Wow. Okay. The raters rated a 3 and you rated yourself a 5. There's quite a gap there. You're not seeing something clearly. So let's try to figure out what that is. Or you're under leveraging a gift you've got that other people see it more strongly than you do. So again, a variety of different ways to look into that. And then while we ask you to go through really putting together now your own developmental resources, one of the exciting things, and this is so wonderful, and maybe Rich, one of the things that we can do is to kind of like help create in the Google Drive folder, maybe create a Santander library of resources people have used. Because what we want you to be able to do is, as you're working with your coach and client and they're seeing the results of what they've got and the things for them to be doing, that that you can be getting insights from the resources you've already developed, or that we've got available through other intelligent leadership coaches, and that we've already got out on the platform. Rich, you want to make a comment on that?
I know that I'm been working with Nina on that right now. So we're getting
Okay.
everything transferred into a regular Santander folder. So Rocio's got another question for you, Sue.
Yes, and it's for both of you, Rich. If they are 72 questions and they're in English only, it's going to be very difficult for the raters, if they don't speak English, to respond to them. So garbage in, garbage out.
Well, and Rich, I think you can talk to this. With the Santander agreement, there is some specificity around that.
Yeah, there is on that, Rocio, and I appreciate what you're saying on that. But the problem is with this one, and this is a survey that we've had EDA create for us. This is getting into something that would take a long time, working with EDA to fix that. Right now, we've never, I mean, with the MLAI and everything else that we've talked about, we have never used these in any other language other than English. And this has been used all over the world right now in different places. So I know that that works in what we're doing, but as far as what Santander's expectations are too, is that we'll be doing a lot of this in English as well. So that would be something that would be incredibly difficult at this point to try to get that changed. And when you see the results here, what the actual report looks like, and that I just sent Sue the new one, so you should have that on your email, Sue.
Okay.
All right, with the new one, so we can. I mean, that's something we can talk about off of here, Rocio, and I understand we've had that same conversation. I know that this is something that I don't foresee right now that happening with EDA. I don't know, and we can find out what they can do about that. But this is,
Rich,
let me
that
look into
point,
that,
though,
Rocio. But right now, yeah.
To your point, though, Rich, Rocio, this was raised. Florian, we'll get to you in just a moment. Thank you for raising your hand. This was actually raised in the conversations with Santander, and they said that their expectation is that the people participating will be able to use English.
Participating, but we are talking about 10 raters per participant. Direct reports.
Right. Yep.
So clients, you said, vendors, you said. So we cannot impose on, maybe as a criteria for selection of stakeholders is that they are comfortable in English.
Yes.
Because if not, whatever they are going to respond will bias the entire assessment.
Yes. The only other thing we have had some coaching clients work with is that someone in the company is able to translate for them. But we'll have more of a conversation
That's
about
a great comment, Rocio, around that. So, well, I know we've had that conversation before. We'll look into that.
Florian.
That was very similar comment about selecting maybe stakeholders if they speak English, otherwise don't consider them.
Yes, the two things that we've had is that the stakeholders can speak and understand English, and the other one is that they will have a translator for that. And we've had people who've done that as well. And since they're going to be working with that in that same company for the, you know, or there's already a relationship there, that's something that can be done. So those are for consideration, but yes, we'll continue to discuss that and bring it up, but it is something that can be a consideration. All right.
Carlos.
Wow.
Yeah, I understand that one of the major strengths of JMoton methodology is this close contact with the client and this direct communication, personal communication. I understand it's a lot of investments to translate those tools, but when we measure that with the size of the project, it's not so much. And a number of people in this group have proven interest in making validation of translations, and we have so many tools today that make it fast and easy. So if you guys want us to translate those tools and to validate translations, we can support in that. Some of us will be volunteers at least.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That would go a long way toward it, and it would help with having a conversation with EDA to doing that. So Rich, I think it sounds like something you can follow up on. We appreciate you guys very, very much. Oh, pardon me. Where I grew up, you guys is a frame is a matter of speech that means everybody. And I apologize. I am in a multicultural group, and not everybody may see that, and I apologize. I mean everybody. If I accidentally say that, I'll try to be very intentional about not saying it anymore. But all right, let's get back into it. And thank you, Carlos, for offering that on behalf of others, which I know that you're not the only one. People have been so generous with offering to share. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead now and stop the share and actually pull up the assessments. And let me go ahead and do a share with this. All right, is everyone able to see this? Let me make it a little bit bigger.
Yep.
So just so everybody knows, this is an actual 360 with one of my clients that I have their permission to use this for training. So
it's wonderful. So when you come in, you're going to have the, of course, the cover for it, identifying what the different areas are of the survey, and then start walking through it. All right. And we showed you this a little bit about, this is talking about it, and this is going to be Rich. What you, if you'll go ahead and look at the language on that rating scale, that scale option, you may want to have review.
What'd you do to it?
I don't know what I did to it, but for some reason,
Yeah.
Take a look at it. So at any rate, this maybe it was in my expanding it out, but here where we talk about the respondents and the participants here. All right. So right here, you can see there's a big gap in other. Only two responded. And then in their peers, only 5 out of 8 responded. So this is very important for you as we go through here. What I do, let me do a stop share. What I'm going to be providing you, or another member of the team, but we're going to be providing you as we go along. So you're going to launch the survey to all of the different respondents. And what we're able to see is whether whether it was received successfully, and whether it's in process, or whether they've completed it. And so when we're going along, we're sending reminders and we're giving you updates. So you're going to see that several of them have not completed the survey yet. Several of them have not even begun. So it's on us as coaches to be checking back with our stakeholders, our coaching clients, and I'm sorry, checking back with our coaching clients to check back with their stakeholders to make sure that they are getting that done. That in the day in and day out, where they've got a lot of different things going on, that your coaching client keeps putting that back up to a high level of priority. We're sending emails to them to say, hey, you need to keep getting this done and working on it, to remind them of it. And it's a form email, but it's a lot of this is incumbent on your coaching client to be ensuring that they're getting to it, and then finding out why they're not. Is there something going on? Because one of the things that could happen is that if you've got several respondents and they're not responding, and you talk to them and they say, I'm in the middle of a project right now and I don't have capacity for this, but I'm going to finish it on Friday. We can keep the survey open longer than that close date. So we don't have to end it on that date that was identified if there's a good reason. So let's stay in constant communication about the progress and what they're doing and who's responding and who's not responding. Okay. All right. Now, here is an example of with the competency profile. Over on the right-hand side, you've got the map that's got the colors. And then you've got the indirect reports, the peers, the supervisor, self, others. So what you see is a variety of different ways this person is being seen by these different groups. Okay. And it's a very great, it's a great snapshot into what it is. And then you're looking at the 9 outer core competencies that it's being measured on. All right. Then when we're looking at the scores for here, all the raters, all right, for scoring from a 1 to a 5, all of them are at about 4.03, and the medium, kind of like what's in the middle, is a 4, so that's pretty strong. The indirect reports, not quite as strong. Peers, pretty much like, pretty strong. Supervisor, others way up high. Direct reports, and then self. And here's an example where you see that self has underreported what everybody except the indirect reports did. So this is another good snapshot, a visual snapshot into what it is. So that's what this report does. It just keeps showing you visually, very clearly, different ways of looking at it. All right, so then of all of the competencies, okay, for all of the competencies, the overall ranking is 4.03 out of 5. The top one is emotional leadership, and the bottom one is critical thinking. And now we'll go through it. Now, those are important because as you're looking at what they're being measured on and held accountable for, and you're identifying the outer core competencies that need to be strengthened and supported for them to achieve what they're being measured on and held accountable for, then you also tie back into the MLEI, where they naturally have the inclination and the opportunity to support what they're doing, or it's reasonable they may have some challenges. Because when you get clarity on that, then you can make the wisest choices for what to do moving forward. So if you have someone and they rate lower in an outer core competency, and you look back at their MLEI and it's reasonable because it's not something they're naturally wired to do, then you're going to look at what you're creating in your development plan, that it's going to be a little bit different. But if you're looking at it and you go over to the MLEI and you see, well, you've got a great amount of potential, you're already strong in this area, you're already easy, then you've got ways that you've got a reference reservoir that you can strengthen. Many people have the false identity that they need to be great at everything. So they judge themselves. And when they have an assessment and they see the results of it, if they're not great with everything, they feel like, well, they're failing. There's something wrong. I mean, how many of us are great at everything? We're not. I mean, you're not going to want me to operate on your heart. I can just tell you that much. And you're definitely not going to want me to sing a lullaby to your children to go to sleep at night. So there are things that I am not gifted at and I am not skilled at. And there are things I am. And so when we bring these together, it gives people permission to be who they are meant to be and shows them how to step into that. And it helps them identify. This is why we want them to be in the best place to not have judgment. And that's why the assessments were identified the way they are. That's why we do the core purpose statement. And that's why we bring these things together and educate them and show them all the different lenses of them so they can get the clearest view to have the most potential for this to be the most valuable outcome for them. All right. So then what we're next going to go through is to take a look at by competency, what the reviews are. All right. So in critical thinking, overall critical thinking, 3.71 out of 5. Now, just as an example, and again, because it's such a large group, I'm not going to ask you to participate, but what I normally would be doing is asking you to see if anything just really stands out for you in this. And what it looks like to me is there's pretty much alignment in critical thinking. You know, it's pretty close in alignment with critical thinking. All right, well, then we've got decision making, okay? And so of the 9, and we're going to go through all 9 of these. So the next, you're looking at where is there alignment and a lack of alignment, and you tie these back to what they're being measured on and held accountable for that they need to have with the outer core competency. Communication, and you've got team leadership. So here in team leadership, one of the things that stands out to me is there's quite a discrepancy. There's a more noticeable discrepancy in talent leadership between the different raters than there has been in some of the others. Supervisors lower than the other rating groups other than self. Self is lower than everybody. Okay. So as we look through this, you're seeing the different how they're seen with the outer core competencies. All right, so we go through these. Then we come down to the next one, which is the summary from highest to lowest overall ranking. So these are the 9 outer core competencies. And here's how they're ranked. This is the strongest one is emotional leadership. The lowest one is critical thinking. Well, there's really not a huge gap. I mean, this shows somebody who's pretty well-rounded. Some of them, there are tremendous gaps. There are over 2-point gaps within them. And so, and I'm going to give you some other reports to be able to look at. All right. So then what we're going to be looking at is when we take critical thinking, okay, this is where we're going to go through the individual questions. All right. Recognizes the importance of it, analyzes. So these are the individual questions for critical thinking. All right. Then we've got decision making. So we go through each of those. So now I'm going to spin through this because this is where we're getting down into the granularity of the 8 unique questions. And you'll be able to see these, the 8 unique questions for each of the 9 outer core competencies. And it aligns with each one so you can see what they are. And when you're showing, for example, when you're showing your coach and client and they're working with their stakeholders to understand it, you look at like talent leadership where you've got 2 people who didn't answer. You know, that's not a very, you know, you want to make sure that they're answering all of the questions so that they know how to take it there. Every single question that they respond to is important. And so having them see what they look like and understand what it can be is incredibly important. All right. So then we get through these. Almost done. All right. Then we look at the highest and lowest rated of all of the items. Okay. Again, a different lens and several things to be looking at. All right. So right here, we've got top behaviors, and emotional leadership is number 1. Wow, emotional leadership is also in number 3. Okay, well then, and drive for results is number 2, and it's also in there as the 5th one. So we've got a couple different areas. Let me get the rest of these. All right. We got the top 5 and we got the bottom 5. So we can see if there are patterns. So look at this in the bottom 5. 3 out of the bottom 5 are in the group of decision making. All right, and in here, two leaders, we got emotional leadership and drive for results are in the highest. But when we talked earlier about talent leadership, we saw a huge discrepancy in there. So again, different lenses into what it looks like. Okay. Then with the blind spots and hidden strengths. All right. We've got blind spots and hidden strengths. All right. And that's, so what a blind spot in the hip, by the way, let me just stop for a quick second. Whoop. Hang on a minute. The blind spots and hidden strengths are when there's a gap of at least 2 points. So where there's a significant amount of difference between them, right? I see that there are a couple of questions. Andres.
Sorry, Sue, can you define significant?
Yeah, the gap is at least 2 points. So a blind spot or a hidden strength becomes those if there is more than a gap of 2 points between how the self sees themselves and the raters see them.
Thank you.
So it's a hidden strength if they underreport by at least 2 points what their expertise is. It's a blind spot if they see them at least 2 points or more better than they're seen by others. Does that answer your question?
And why 2 points instead of like 1 or 1.5?
Because I don't know the answer to that, but it was just that it's more significant. 1 point, like about a 1 point is not that much, but when you get to about 2 points, it's pretty significant. It's noticeable. So I don't know the reason they chose 2 points, but it's 2 points and above.
Okay, I have a suggestion
Yes.
and request. The suggestion is, as we're going to have a large number of executives from Santander, and after we run all those 360s, we will be able to have a sense of their culture. It would be nice if we have the chance to run the 360 again in 2026 to include an average of the company, something that can make them feel if this kind of when they are being evaluated, if they are above or below the average of the company as a whole. That's just a suggestion.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
And as a request, I'm not a specialist in statistics, but I understand that if we take a look at an average of 10 evaluations, this average doesn't mean much because individual people have different rulers, scales of evaluation. When I add 9 questions to a dimension, maybe the average is more or less significant. When we consolidate all the evaluations, then the understanding of the average changes. It would be nice to have a guideline from a statistician on how to understand these differences. You know, I worked with clinical trials. Averages of small groups, they're never relevant. But we are having 72 questions that add up an average at the end of the day. And this might be interpreted differently than the average from each individual question. So if any statistician can give us a guideline on how to interpret that, that may be useful.
Well, that's a good point. We have one of those on staff. So we have someone on our team who's working with that. So that's a great suggestion. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Carlos. Andres?
Thank you, Sue. You can see that the report is definitely deep and broad. So what is the expectations in terms of debriefing at 58 pages with so many data
Would you please do
in
me a
terms
favor?
of the
Hold on to
process?
that? Would you hold on to that? Because we're going to get to that.
Yep.
Would you pretty please do that?
Okay.
Okay. Great
Sure.
question. I promise you we're getting to that. Before we did that, I wanted to make sure everybody got to see it. So thank you and hang on to it. And if I don't fully answer it, please ask it again. Fiona?
Just to say, so one of the things I do a lot of 360s in a mining company in 4 countries, and what I find sometimes is there are lower scores from some people. And I think what's useful here is to underline that we look at all the evaluations these people have, because it's sometimes that they do have the skill, but it is not visible in the context and where they're working with that person. So this piece about curiosity rather than judgment, I think, is really important. And my question is, I don't see the leader in the results. Where would the leader be placed?
When
Is
you
that-
say leader, are you talking about the supervisor or are you talking about the coach and client? What's your
No,
definition?
I'm talking about the one up.
Okay, that
leader.
would be the supervisor.
Is that the supervisor? Okay, because
Yep,
that's
that's
kind
it.
of different.
And it's
language
kind of
wise.
the generic term for that, but they've identified it as supervisor.
And that would obviously be something that would be someone who's not confidential, because there would be only one person answering.
Right.
Okay.
Where
Thank you.
now, to your point though, Fiona, very well raised. There are times when the supervisor can have a conversation with the coach because there's something that needs to be shared and can't be shared confidentially.
Yeah.
So what part of what you have in your communication, and you have your coach and client do this to make sure that the individual participants know, and you may have had the specific conversation with the supervisor, because you would have, you're going to have a conversation with your coach and client supervisor anyway. And as it comes to the 360 process, is you are the only one who cannot have anonymity completely. If there are comments that you believe are impactful that I should know about, things as we go through here, please share them with me and I'll make sure that they get included in that. So thank you for raising that.
Thank you.
Yes, just like we want to train the others, like the direct reports, peers and everything, that if there's something they feel is important to say and they're not sure how to say it, we either help them so they can say it in the survey, or they tell us so that we can participate and maintain that anonymity. So excellent point and spot on. All right, so continuing to go through here, this is one of the most powerful points. And this is, again, why I have the coach and client have shared with stakeholders. This is what, and it's anonymous because it's somebody else's. Share what one of these looks like so they can see the power of being impactful in the comments that you're providing, how they can really, really help and support it. These are also the things that for our specific coach and client, we're going to be putting into the individual leadership development plan that gives some context and some structure to what we're doing and the reasons why. And it's helping us see why, for example, when you have a more in alignment relationship with your direct reports than you do your indirect reports or in one of the other groups, it gives you insights as a coach and client into why you might not be in alignment, so that when you're working and creating the individual leadership development plan, you can be specific in what it is you're going to be working on. Then when you're sharing that with the stakeholders, as you're moving into that 3 months of coaching, they know that you've prioritized this and you're working on it. So these are very, very good insights into it. What I would normally do when we have an expanded time for our class that I'm going to ask you to do on your own is to look at some of these as you look at everything in here and just get insights that for you would make you want to go back into the details of the survey, go back into the MLEI, and have these comments be inflection points for what you're working on with your coaching client. But let's come through here and let's just take a look at this one. In critical thinking, there are significant, that empathy is a powerful tool and needs to be managed actively. So this, it talks about what self said, All raters, the ability to get to the root of a problem when many stakeholders are involved, well organized, very objective. And then also, all right, development needs. So we talk about two things. We talk about strengths right here, significant strengths in the open-ended comments for each of the areas. And we talk about development needs where there are gaps. Okay. Managing upward needs to have a better understanding of personal self-worth. Wow, what a great insight. And those are triggers, great inflection points for looking at the MLA, for asking the questions why that wouldn't be there. Because so often something like personal self-worth is because you have an unconscious pattern of belief that you're not even aware of. And we can ask questions and reveal those, and then you're at choice to replace them with something that serves you now, as with the coaching client is at choice to replace that. And then through the course of the coaching, it gets reinforced, and then that becomes a healthier unconscious pattern of belief and behavior. Okay. Leaning into analytical abilities and emotional reactions. So as you see through this, significant strengths, and this is for each of the outer core competencies. So deep insights into that. This is why this is a reference reservoir throughout the entire coaching journey. And as I was saying, it's not just that first pass through intelligent leadership. They then get through LeaderWatch, they come back and they get more information. And then even if your coaching engagement has ended after they've gone through LeaderWatch a few times, then they will now have that pattern where they can keep coming back and getting these insights and getting additional information, because there may be things that they're learning that either aren't the highest priority or that are going to take longer to have an impact. And so the development of them is not going to be in the first 3 months. It may be begun, or it may be something that they're going to be doing down the road, but they want to put it in there so that they can, and this gives them insights into what it is. So as we go through here and you see all of these pieces of information for each of the outer core competencies and for what it is overall, what you're seeing is there's a tremendous amount of different lenses that there is into it. All right. So let me stop share. And we're going to share with you several of these. They're all out on the Google Drive. The other ones are out on the Google Drive. I'm going to pull one of them up to show you quickly, because I want you to get an idea of, and this is one of the ones you have access to, is here we go. Let me just pull this one page up to show you. There we go. Okay. This is what you don't want. This is being, now this is a previous model of the 360. So you'll see that that we were using the spider graph, but take a look at what other said, and other just put all the ranking out here. So this is a great image for you to still use to show that, well, you're just going to throw it out because they're not providing value. This is in the preparation that you do with your coaching client, and that they can also use with their stakeholders of the importance. Because look over here under decision making, where you see that there's such great alignment, and then there's a big gap. And then over here, you see where everybody's a little bit more in alignment, and talent leadership. And so these other ones are giving you valuable insights, and then other definitely isn't. Okay. And we want to make sure that that's why we said other was, mom. All right. We're going to move forward, because then when we get to the top of the hour, we're going to switch over to the LeaderWatch survey, which is the survey that's going to be conducted after they have been working with the coaching components for several months. All right. Let's take a moment here because Rich, we've got a little bit of time where we can have some individual participation. If people would like to, if you'd like me to walk through in more detail with what that is, or to then use that to go back into the MLEI and get insights from the MLEI for why that is. What I'll share one more thing, and then Rich, kind of think about what will and others can share what you'd like us to do. But one of the things that is so important and so powerful about what intelligent leadership does is we prioritize context, so that the survey that we got, the 360 results, are looked at through the lens of the clarity that's been validated with your coaching client's supervisor of what they're being measured on and held accountable for. And of those components, all of intelligent leadership ties back to what that is. So there's a lot of insight that will come from the MLEI and that will come from the 360, that when it's run through that, and the CPI 260 and the IOP, when they're run through what the coaching client is being measured on and held accountable for, that's what goes into the individual leadership development plan. So each of these is more expansive, and what tones them in and focuses them down is that we feed these through the individual leadership development plan and harvest the components of it that are going to support them, and things that they need to look out for that they strengthen because they may not be showing up. That MLEI interpretive report is so powerful because it helps support the underlying reasons why something may not be the strength that it is. And it also helps you as a coach in your questioning, because you're raising to their level of awareness unconscious beliefs and patterns of behavior that are no longer supporting them, as well as revalidating those that are. Does all of this make sense? Are we good? Okay. Fiona, I see you put a you've got a, let's see what your comments, if we could, what? Let's see.
I was just wondering maybe if you could maybe either choose the blind spot and just try and connect that to MLI, so that we can actually just get that clarity around, this is the results of something in the 360. Let's take it back to MLI and see where the connection is.
All right, let me pull up. That's a good.
But I don't know if everybody else would want something else, but.
No, that's a good, and actually, Fiona,
For me.
oh, Fiona, I'm actually going to have you do it. All right. So here's,
Oh,
yeah, we'll do it together. How about that?
Oh,
All right.
okay.
I'm going to pull up a 360, and I'm going to pull up an MLEI, and we're going to walk through those together. Now, what we're going to do is an exercise that's really great for you to be doing together, which is what I call pulling the threads. And that's finding something and going back to try to find out what it is. So let me pull these up really quickly. All right. And right. And all right, here we go. All right, I'm going to do a share. This is this is BN as a coaching client that we have their information also out on the Google Drive folder. All right. And we've got their, we'll go through looking also at their ILDP and go through all of the pieces of that. All right. So in the profile chart for BN, we see the different areas right here. Let's take a look at, so Fiona, I'm going to have you, and I'm not looking at you now, so take yourself off of mute, And I'd like you to look at this competency profile radar chart, and I'd like you to identify one thing you want to take a look at. For example, it could be, like here's
Strategic, I would probably look at strategic thinker or
perfect. Yeah.
talent leadership.
All right. So we're going to look at strategic thinking because you see, this is what made you want to look at strategic thinking?
Because there seems to be a disconnect with the purple and the green compared to the yellow and
Yeah.
the brown.
Yep. And purple is self, and self is way low. Direct reports are way high. Supervisors, a little bit kind of in between. Peers and strategic. So there's a big gap there. So this is great. All right. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take this and we're going to quantify it a little bit. Okay. Because we want to see where this gap comes. So we're going to follow through here. Okay. All right, so we've got strategic thinking. So here we have the questions for strategic thinking. All right. And in here where we look at, so I'm just going to identify a couple things in here specifically, and then we'll go, I'll have you pick at the end of where you want to go, Fiona. So what we see is that all raters rate at about a 4.3. Direct reports are way out there, but self is a full point below. Okay, self and supervisor are close, but a full point below direct reports or indirect reports. So not in alignment. Okay. Then we've got right here, self, and we talked about a blind spot or a hidden strength. Okay, what would this be considered?
Need a UGC video for your business? Find me.
This is a 2, and you got 4s.
Yeah, 4.1. Yeah.
So what is this? What is that when it's 2 points or more? What is that considered below?
It's considered significantly, I can't remember what it's called. It's not a blind spot.
Hidden strength. It's a hidden strength. Everybody else says you're really good at that and you don't see it in yourself. All right. So just for the sake of doing that, okay.
Can I jump in here real quick?
Yes.
Fiona, if you go back to the MLEI, remember how we do the PDL and the least.
So Rich.
Yeah.
We're getting ready to go to the MLEI. Do you want me to pull it up for you to do that now? Because what I wanted to do is
I was just saying that's where we get to that. So we can get to that in a minute, but that's where those hidden strengths and blind spots come in. That's how we compare on the MLEI.
Right. So what we're doing is we're identifying something in the component of it. We're going to go over to the MLEI. So Rich, when we get to the MLEI, I'll have you go ahead and walk through that with it to show it. But I want to give you another lens, okay, into where this is, okay, before we go over there. So what we've identified right now in the 360 is that right here, we're going to take this one right here. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Really underrating themselves compared to everybody. All right. So now let's come down here.
And what was interesting, Sue, in that score, even the leader who was given lower scrolls and all the rest gave this a 4.
Yes. So way under. All right. So then when you look at in highest rated items, okay.
Yeah.
All right. And you've got other areas of strategic thinking in the top rated items. And right here, okay, it's not listed overall for that. Then you get to the blind spots and the hidden strengths. Okay. So we come here and we see that in strategic thinking, look at how many right here in a row, this one, and this one, and this one, and this one, and this one. All right. That would be 6 hidden strengths in strategic thinking. Big red flag, right? So and we don't know any details yet, but just the picture of this, just like, wow, okay, this is really showing me. All right. Then, and being respectful of time, we're not going to go into the comments, but you would then go into the
Yeah, I
content
mean,
to do that, okay? Now what we're going to do is we're going to go over into what Rich was identifying. Now we're going to step into the MLEI and get the insights. So let me pull that up. All right. And Rich, why don't you walk through, everybody can see the MLEI now? Let me make it a little bit bigger here. Rich, why don't you now take that to take your comment back and go for it.
Sue, can we show them what the, not off of this, but how we do the PDL and the least mature and the most mature? On the template, have you got that for this one?
Let me look and see. Why don't you?
Probably not, but if we look at what the predominant style is on this, which is that driver, that's going to be that predominant leadership trait, right? So on the template that we were using, we call that the PDL. So the most mature, if you can scroll down just a little bit,
Sure.
Sue.
Uh-huh. Hang on just a minute. I was looking up the other piece there. There we go. Okay.
Yeah. So if you look at the entertainer here, that is also, that's going to be that most mature trait. And even though if you look at the score on it, the strength, it's less than what that driver is. So this is what we were going to call that most mature, but it also becomes in some ways that hidden strength, right? That strength, even though the activity is not as high in that area, but the maturity is higher, that becomes that hidden strength. So in a lot of ways, that becomes a strength that if they're rating themselves lower than that, could be that blind spot or that hidden strength that they're not aware of.
And that's a huge part of it because
So that's where we're getting back to that perception based. Remember how on the MLEI, we're looking at those hidden strengths, those surprise strengths, least mature, most mature, predominant. And then remember, we're going to look at the perception based, which is a 360. We're going to come back and compare those. What areas do people see in us? How are we translating these strengths to that outer core that we may or may not be aware of? That's where the blind spots and the hidden strengths on the 360 come into play when we go back and compare it.
so we should see a correlation between the 360 and the MLEI.
That's what we're looking for, yes.
Yeah, okay.
and the other part of it is that you're also looking for is you're looking for, because and let me just come back over here. When they're answering the questions for the MLEI, they're not doing that through the lens of how they perform in their outer core competencies. They're doing it through how they're naturally wired to view the world. So one of the things that shows up is that they have much more capacity to leverage something in a healthy way than they're taking advantage of. And what we do then is to say, you've got the opportunity, look at how high you rate. So the importance in that MLEI interpretive guide is to having them know for each of their types what their natural strengths are, the natural ways they have of doing things that they may not even be aware of. But it's reasonable if they haven't been in a role where they were utilizing something, they wouldn't be very mature in it. If somebody had told them you're no good at that and they believed that, they would have been underperforming in it or avoiding it. Or if they hadn't had the need to be using it professionally and now they're using it, they would have potential for it. So the combination of how they are perceived with what they have access to that they may not be utilizing. And this is where, and let's come back into here, into the MLEI. If you have, for example, I'll just use the entertainer for right here. If you've got the entertainer and they're very mature in that, they're also very active in it, meaning that they have a very healthy relationship with the traits of their personality that lend them to the type that is called the entertainer. But then where you see a discrepancy, we'll go through two different other discrepancies. Then you see the driver, the traits of the driver, and you look and you understand what those are and where those might be seen in the outer core competencies, where those might be seen in the assessment of the STLI 360. And you look at how maturely they're using it, they're not using it very maturely at all. And so it would be an area where you would look at what are the open-ended comments about how they're utilizing the traits that are the components of the driver in what their actions are that they're being seen by others in the 360. So you recognize that this is an area where they might be derailing significantly because they're really using something, but potentially not using it very well. And then you look at there's not really one the other way as strongly in this one, but we have opportunities. Let's just say, for example, the entertainer is 0.467, but down here they're like the 26. Okay, the helper here is the closest one where they're not using it very much and they're pretty mature in it. But you look at, so what are the personality components that are in the helper trait? How would these show up in outer core competencies and other people are commenting on them? And then, okay, so these are insights and you run these through what they're being measured on and held accountable for. And you find out where you want to prioritize working on those specific things through that lens.
So if we worked on their strategic thinker with their PDL, that would hopefully, given the fact that we're really focusing in, that would really make a big difference in our evaluation in the 6 months.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So do you see how these, and this is, so, and we'll get to your questions in just a moment, Christine and Carlos. This is where, and you can do this even now, pull the threads between the MLEI and the STLI 360. Practice, like create a scenario and run it through what those lenses are. Use a current coaching client, something that a current coaching client is working on. Create something and kind of walk through it and pull the threads and find the relationships. Because what happens when you look at that beautiful MLEI interpretive guide, and it's got the exercises in there that you can be doing, is it helps them become aware of things they may not have, to have a healthier relationship with it, or to strengthen what's already there that's being underutilized. And you're giving it context in the 360 through what they're being measured on and held accountable for. So Rich, before we get to the questions, what would you complement that with based on your insights?
Sorry, Sue, I was trying to fix this copy apparently that I sent out to everybody in the chat a minute ago. Apparently there's a watermark in it and it gets rid of all the F's. When I try to, some kind of watermark that some kind of deal that EDA's put into it. So I'm trying to fix that right now.
Well,
anyway, so I missed a question. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Everybody go ahead and don't use that because we'll get you a correct one. I mean, you can use it in its way, but don't share it with your coaching clients. We'll get you a good version of it. But before we move back, we've got a couple of questions there. Thank you, Sven. Before we get to Carlos's and Christine's question, is there anything else you wanted to add to the pulling the threads back and forth between the MLEI and the 360?
You know, one thing that when we put all these together along with that CPI 260, we're going to do the video on and show you. When you really look at all of those together, and primarily really look into STLI 360, this is one of those things that you know, we're going to go through. We're going to look at all the threads. We're going to look at all the you know, maybe those hidden blind spots, those comments. Look at all these and then go back and really take a look at how did we show up on our inner core? How did we answer those specific questions? How did the client answer those specific questions? I can tell you in this particular case, with this individual. She was very upset when she saw the results on the 360 versus what her MLEI was. And she felt in some ways betrayed. And she started going through these saying, I know who said this, I know who said that. One of those things is kind of had to talk her off the edge there, get her off the cliff, if you will, and not focus on feeling betrayed by this organization. And quite frankly, I'm not going to tell you what the organization is because it's one that's a global company, and she's a senior executive in that organization and feels very betrayed by some of those people in the company. So when you're starting to pull these threads, that's, that was one of the first things I had to do with her, is get her away from just what the comments were in the 360, and really focus in on how does this compare to what your inner core is? How did that compare to those hidden strengths, those inner core strengths that we really have, and focus on how is that really being translated to that outer core? What she viewed as these instances that she was being betrayed on, in some ways she was not aware of how she was showing up, or and so this was one of those things that we had to work on a little bit, but now it's turned out quite good for her. She was after, and it was that initial sticker shock, if you will. And after, we worked on that for about a week or so, she came back and was able to really focus on those things. But again, pulling those threads, getting the client to understand
Right.
that none of this is out of spite. Whereas the people on here aren't, your stakeholders aren't after you for, to spite you. They're after to help you improve. And that
they
was
also answered questions. They respond differently in some
Yeah.
cultures. I mean, it's and this is part of where we help our stakeholders answer the questions most maturely. This also further strengthens why I am so, for me, everybody's different. I want to have them see and learn about the MLEI with someone else's, so that they understand the value of what the MLEI has for them with the interpretive guide in a neutral environment, so that they're able to look at it for its potential and possibilities. Then I do the same thing with the 360. I have them learn in a neutral environment. They're not looking at what somebody else said. They're not, that relates to them. They're not looking at what their supervisor rated them versus everybody else. What they're looking at is the power of these tools to support them in their growth and to help them validate why they would choose to start digging deep and to give purpose to what it is. So I work very closely ensuring that they're in a healthy place with the understanding of them, and we've pulled the threads between the 360 and the MLEI and understood then the interpretive guide and how they all tie together before we bring the 360 into focus with their own specific survey. Not everybody does that. That's completely up to you. I want the least amount of judgment because I want them to be curious. I want them to be open, and I want them to be curious, and I want them to already be in a position of being excited about what they're going to learn. So some of that is we're already working on these unconscious patterns of belief and behavior, of judgment, that they've judged themselves as not enough, or they're afraid of what other people have said. So we want them to be in a healthy spot with that. All right. Thank you, Rich. Let's go with Christine. You've got a question.
Yeah, everything you're saying makes sense. So thanks for, really fleshing out the how to connect the MLEI and the 360. I wanted to be super clear on one thing on the MLEI scores, particularly on identifying blind spots and hidden strengths, because I heard it the opposite way that I think I had heard it before. So I just wanted to clarify. Looking at the driver and the helper, I
me
would
Go ahead
identify,
and pull it back up again. Let me just go ahead and pull it
well,
back up
the
again.
driver was like a 47 with a 0.46 maturity and the helper was a 26 with a 0.4.
There you go.
Yeah. So I would identify the helper, you know, as a hidden strength where it's high maturity, low frequency. I don't know what you call it, but is that like if I got this report with a client, I would say, oh, wow, it looks like your helper might be a hidden strength. Let's explore that further. But I didn't hear you or Rich refer it to that way. So I just wanted to check in and see if that's an accurate way of thinking about it.
Excellent point. Rich, you sound like you want to share something. You want to go first?
Yes, and this is one of those interesting things. Remember when we do the MLEI, we don't want to bite off the whole, we don't want to eat the whole elephant during that debrief. So we identify a couple places on there that initially are places that we can start looking at. Now, when we do this, one of the things that we're going to do, remember, we don't do a development plan off just the MLEI. Remember, this is just raising awareness. We just want to raise awareness of what the inner core is telling them. If we go down the road and we get doing that CPI 260, that outer core, and then we come to the 360, we might go back and really visit some of those areas of maybe that helper that even is that lower activity with the higher maturity. And I got to tell you, from my experience, a lower activity and a higher maturity on that helper is not only a hidden strength, but it's a very healthy area. And that's one of those ones that I look at. If I see a very high activity there on that helper and a low maturity, that's kind of one of those. And I got to tell you, I've told you all this before, how many of these I've done, and I've only seen that in maybe 4 cases. And that is really those individuals that almost bordering on some areas. That's all they do. I'm a people person. I'm going to do it for them. I'm going to do it for them. I'm going to do it for them. I'll take it off your plate. It's that person that goes around the airplane putting on everybody else's mask and then does theirs last and sits down and wonders if they did the right thing while the plane's still going down in flames, not solving any of the problems. So if I look at that helper score, Christine, and I see that as one of those areas that's a lower activity but higher maturity ratio, definitely want to come back and look at that. But that already tells me that's a very strong area for these individuals. And
But to the point though, Rich, when you look
Yeah.
at all of the scores together,
Yeah.
one of the things you want to do, and I want to compliment and
And this is, and what I'm saying, Sue, is yes, after we get with the MLEI and some of these and the 360, we're going to come back. We're going to look at all of it. There could be some things that we missed, right? So
when we look at how we're showing up to others, if we are not as mature in an area, if we're not as mature in an area where we're utilizing it, we look for the areas in the outer core competencies where that's showing up. So there's not always, because if in the outer core competencies, we're not really utilizing it as much, because remember, the inner core is our vision of ourselves. The outer core is other people's visions of ourselves. So if in our outer core, what we're doing, we're not really utilizing that in a lot. It's not something that we're called on to use a lot, or where you've been told we're not really good at it, or things like that. It may not manifest itself as materially. So there's not necessarily a one-to-one relationship. It's when you find either the alignment or the discrepancy of it. And again, all of these run through, what are you being measured on and held accountable for? Because in and of themselves, they're data points. All the things in the 360, all the things in the MLEI, all the things in the CPI 260 and the IOP, they're all data points. It's when we bring them together with the context of what they're being measured on and held accountable for that they start to validate or to give us, that's where pulling those strings comes together with the relationship between them. And it's that context. Does that make sense, Christine?
Yeah, so I guess what I'm hearing is like the phrase hidden strength or what was the other
Blind
one?
spots and hidden strengths.
Blinds. Yeah. So I guess that's not necessarily reserved for the LEI debrief alone, but rather in conjunction with the other assessments.
So the blind spots and hidden strengths are in the 360 survey. Those are how others perceive you, or you perceive yourself, and others perceive you in a different way. So that's where that gap is there. In the maturity ratios and the activity ratios of the MLEI, it's where you are acting in a very mature way, living and expressing yourself in a very mature way.
Yes.
But
No, Sue, I understand. I'm so sorry. I just want to make sure we have time for other people's questions. It's actually a very direct question because when we were trained on MLEI, blind
Yes.
spot and constraint were also used
okay,
as a way to debrief the MLEI. And so I'm just not hearing it here. So I want to be clear if, you know, to reconcile the discrepancies in training that I've witnessed.
they can be
That's
seen
all.
as they can be tied to the, usually they can be tied to their blind spots and their hidden strengths. There can be. Yes. It's not necessary. It's not an absolute 100% is all I'm saying. They can be
Okay.
tied to it because
Thank you.
one is tied to who you are, and one is tied to what you're doing. Okay.
Got it. And when we work with Santander clients, we will debrief the MLEI first, correct?
Yes.
And then the 360 will come later. So there's going to be a time gap between these two assessments.
Yes.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
Yep.
You want to
Um,
start those within a few maybe a week or so of each other, honestly. And we'll get into how that goes as we get into the clients. But here's the thing, the 360 can take 2 to 3 weeks or longer to
Right.
complete.
I just
So
want to be careful of my language and make sure I'm not falsely identifying something in the MLEI debrief that may, you know, come out as something
here's the
different.
thing,
Yeah.
Christina, I understand where you're going to on this. If you look at
Okay.
the least mature and most mature based on the activities, right? The least mature, and a lot of when I told you there's going to be a lot of people that are going to come back, why am I that person? I'm not that person. And then breaking that down, the characteristics in the ebook around the least mature and the most mature. We want them to understand that yes, there might be just some characteristics within that trait that could be those hidden spots, right? Or on the
Yep.
most mature, not really aware that that's really showing up as one of their strengths, even though the activity is lower, right? Remember that the Enneagram, the way the Enneagram works, you really, and again, it really is tied together through maturity. It's not simply tied together on the activity, but it has to be tied together with maturity. So yeah, the hidden strength, blind spots, most mature, hidden strength, those are those areas that you can look at and help them understand that. So
Okay.
and then explaining to them that when we get the 360 back, we're going to look at these. Are these truly, you know, those areas that are your blind spots or your hidden strengths or areas that you're not aware of, areas that you're not
There
aware
we
of,
go.
you're translating to the outer core.
Got it. Okay. Thank you both. Thank you, Sue. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. And that's a great question too, because there's a lot of language that goes on around all of that. So, all right, Carlos.
Okay, 2 questions. One of for you, Sue, specifically, and Rich. In your experience, how much of the interpretation from the results of both assessments and the other ones that we're still gonna address are done by the coachee, and how much of the interpretation is done by us?
From my lens,
Go ahead, Sue. Yeah.
how much of the interpretation of it is done by us versus the coachee? I will give you my answer and then Rich can give you his. My lens of it is that I want to fully go through each assessment and understand it through the context of what they're being measured on and held accountable for and what we're prioritizing, what I know. I want to have completely gone through it and have as much clarity as possible on it and have questions I want to ask. I want to be able to walk them through it as a guide to someone like you're putting them on a trail. If you're going to walk through the woods and people are walking through, they don't know what path to take. So I want to be able to help walk them into that. Then when we get to the 360, I want to have really, really looked at it because I already understand what they're being measured on and held accountable for. I understand their MLEI. I pull threads. I get an example of multiple threads that validate the things that they're going to hear, that give context to what the comments are, context to what the ratings are, based on what they're measured on and held accountable for, and all of that. So I've already pre-done all of that work before I invite my coaching client into seeing their own. I've also already taught them how to look at the assessments and the reports independently of anything that has to do with them before we bring those together. So they're in the best place for me to ask them questions, for me to walk them through it for them, because then what I do before they get done with it is I might pull one of the threads for them, but then like we began with Fiona is then I have them pull the next thread. And I have them practice on it till it becomes innate with them. So I help guide them to it. So I've done a lot of the pre-work. Is that helpful, Carlos?
Yes.
That's my win. Okay. All right. Rich, how would you complement that?
I would say the same. You know, you want to be aware of what it says, but the whole point is helping them, you know, see what's there. Pointing those areas out again, you know, go back to the PCC, right? What are the, you know, we're not there to solve the problems. We're there to help guide them through that. And so that's really one of those areas that, yeah, you want to be aware of that, but also help teaching them how to interpret and read through this. So instead of just pointing those things out, I want them to learn how to understand what we're doing.
And the big goal with that exactly is I want them to be and I tell them straight up, I want you to be in the best place to not look at this through the lens of judgment, to look at this through the lens of curiosity about what else is possible. And I give them the answers to things. I say, it's reasonable. There are areas that you may not be as strong in because you either haven't had the training or whatever. And we're going to get to the bottom of all of those things. However, what a brilliant opportunity for you to have a starting place. And if there's something, I also want them to be very candid with me. And this is why we talk about, like from the ICF perspective, is developing the trusted relationship. When you see something and you feel judgment, and in your emotional side of it, you resist it or you feel bad about it, I want to understand those things because those are, as we all know, those are triggers. Those are inflection points. We want to get to the source of those because we don't want to put a Band-Aid on it or what I call lipstick on a pig. We want to go back to the source. All of these assessments that inform us help us get back to the source so we rebuild in a healthy way. And we're doing it when we put things together through the core purpose statement into the individual leadership development plan based on what they're being measured on and held accountable for now. We're also teaching them how to then continue this as they move forward into other roles and responsibilities. All right, Johanna?
No, there is a second question, which is more.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, I apologize.
And,
Oh, there you are, over there now.
And that one is for Rich.
Okay.
Rich, will we have a timeline of all the steps in the Maton process? Because I never worked with so many assessments with a single person, and we have to build the core. I forgot the name. Core purpose.
Yeah.
And in between, we have to show deliveries, right? And it's going to be a 20-something weeks commitment with some clients and a 50 weeks with other clients. So do you have this timeline?
I do. And were you on that presentation that I did for everybody, Carlos?
Yes.
So the timeline is on that presentation. And I can drop that into, matter of fact, we've redone another one now for a 6-month and a 12-month timeline. I will make sure that everybody gets those. That's a very interesting question, Carlos, because that was brought up to us by Santander, wanting to understand what is going on with the number of assessments. And with the timeline and you add in all these core purpose things in there and you're thinking, gosh, that's a whole lot I got to do. But remember that the very first conversation you're going to have is not around the MLEI. It's more that IL behavior interview. If you remember what is, then you start introducing these assessments as you go along. 3-4 months over to do these, which is really quite a long time. And once we start doing these, it really is not as time consuming or as huge as it sounds like or as it looks like. The core purpose statement can take months, 6 months, 7 months, you know, and there really is not big pressure to get that completed in any particular time frame. Core purpose statements take time. And that's one thing we want to encourage, you know, to keep continually working on that. And even as they get through all these other assessments, you know, adding part into their core purpose statement, as they're working on these things. The others, the MLEI, I've done that with most of you. How long did it take you to do the MLEI and then to debrief it? You know, we debrief that in an hour. The CPI 260 is even easier. You know, that's just kind of a comparison. IOPT is very easy. That's why we're doing these on a video to show you these things. Once you get all these together, the 3-month time frame or something, and you've spent time looking at these, from that point on, it's all about putting that development plan into place. The ILDP is another tool we're going to be looking at with you. And here's the thing, Carlos, we're not just going to teach you these and send you out on your own.
Mhm.
That, you know, yeah, so definitely going to be able to help you through this. And here's the interesting thing, Carlos, around that question. I have been doing MLEIs and other assessments with the HR group in each of the different regions. Okay, individually, I'm walking them through the assessments because was in Santander, because that was one of their big questions, and now they're starting to understand, you know, this isn't as much as it looks like, but it's a critical element for the IL process. We have to have these in place. You know, we want to make sure that what we're putting in place is personal commitment and person on our end of our clients, but also making sure that we've covered all our bases, right? We're not just going to give them something to work on. We're going to give them something that is specific to who they are.
Thank you very much, Rich. Carlos, does that help?
Perfect. Thank you.
So, and by the way, Carlos, I've got HR people from around the globe right now that are just going nuts on the MLEI. So they all want to get lined up. Let me take it. Let me take it. I've heard about it. And so I've been busy. I've been very busy breaking these down with a lot of the HR group. So
What's exciting is for many people, it invites them into the consideration of a portion of themselves they have not ever been invited to, or they hadn't considered, or they didn't know how to do. And so it's kind of like you get like you get a new toy at Christmas that you had no idea about, and it's wonderful and you want to play with it and get it. Then you start seeing how it really informs things that you may have known or not known, but you didn't know what to do with them. And then through IL, you're not only learning about it and raising it and figuring out how to prioritize it, because it's phases of prioritization. You're using it in context, so it makes sense. Because otherwise, you're just like, well, how do I do it? I don't know. There's all of this out there. So the things that we're being measured on and held accountable for, and then this is why when Rich says it takes a long time to do the core purpose statement, because as we have these continuous inflection points, and we're learning more about it, and we're giving ourselves permission to explore who we are on the inside. As we're doing these, it's shifting, because a lot of times the core purpose statement comes as an exercise from here before it gets down here, and it needs to be both. And so we're breaking down this part of it to get it down into that part of it. So it's reasonable that you're going to keep refining it, which is why we continuously go back through with everything we do. Let's look at it through the lens of the core purpose statement. Does it still serve you? So you guys are asking fabulous questions. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
just real quick, Sue, I want to just add one thing to what I said real fast. When we were submitting these to Santander in Madrid and going through this process of showing them what we do, one of the primary reasons they went with John Mattone over at Korn Ferry and Mackenzie and Harvard and London Business School, who are also competing for the same contract. The depth that we go into with our assessments was one of the primary selling points, one of the things that they were the most interested in. So, and now because they were sold on it, now I'm working with all the HR groups globally on doing this. So, and that's, you know, that's the next step in really getting this done. The contract's done, it's signed. I'm waiting for them to send it back for me to DocuSign. That's been a process in and of itself. Holy smokes. Talk about lost in translation, different things. So that's been quite a journey in and of itself. So now that that's done, we are having these meetings with all of the different HR groups, Nick and I. So we've had some that have already identified and are waiting. We have been waiting for this contract to be done so they can pull the trigger. So it's they're anxious to get started on this. So that's why I'm not gonna. We don't want to just turn you loose, Carlos, or any of you. I'm gonna make sure that any questions you have throughout the way, I can help you through it. So
Beautiful. Thank you very much. Joanna, and then Gisela, you had a question in the chat we'll come back to and respond to. And Rich, you might want to take a look at that as well. She shared that that wonderful document we've got up on the Google Drive. That's the journey. But I want to specifically answer her question because it gets to some of the things that we've talked about. Joanna, and am I pronouncing your name correctly? Because globally, there are so many different ways to pronounce your name.
I'm Joe. Joe, much easier.
Oh, that makes it much easier. Hi, Joe.
Thanks. Just building a little bit on what was said before by Christine and Joe. I don't know if Joe, how you say Joe, but what I see is, okay, there's this connecting the dots, pulling the threads. I love that. And I'm conscious that I do not have a whole lot of experience on how to do that. And I would love to see, if it's possible, a video of somebody doing that, because what I can, you see the SDLA, but then you've got to, I feel there are various ways that you could connect the dots with the MLEI. You could home in on the helper, or you could home in on the driver, or you could home, I mean, it seems to me that that's an interpretive exercise, which the more experience you have, the easier it is. And going back to the previous question, how much am I leading that, and how much am I letting the coachee figure it out? Because there's not one answer, right? I assume that all sorts of different ways to do this. That's one question. And the other question I have.
Well, let's do one at a time. One at a time. Okay. So to answer your first one, and yes, we can absolutely do a video where I want to prioritize what you take away from this today, everyone. It's context, 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 context. Yes, when we look at the MLEI, it's easy for us to see in the lens of the MLEI. Well, here's someone who is very active in something and they're not very mature in it. And there's a great opportunity that they might be derailing. Or here's something where when they use it, they don't use it very often, but they're using it in a very mature way. So there's a lot of potential there. So we're looking at data points there. When we get to the 360, we're getting context of how they're currently being perceived by others. Externally, others are seeing them. And again, they're data points. It's like, well, the way they're doing now, well, the 360 is measuring where they are today with no awareness of their MLEI and no application to what now we're going to be, based on what they're being measured on and held accountable for, what we're going to be doing moving forward. So when we work with our coach and client, we are taking data points of detail and creating insights and information from the inflection points of them that are being run through what they're being measured on and held accountable for, that help us prioritize what we look at. So helper may not be something this is great data to have, but right now, based on what they're being measured on and held accountable for, these are the other areas initially the highest ranking, because what you start with in your individual leadership development plan is what are the highest, most important things for you to prioritize right now. Then we're going to measure their performance after about 3 months of working with that through that Leader Watch survey. Then they're going to come back and harness the next set of kinds of components. So all of these data points that you're getting are being run through context. And that's what we as coaches are doing, is the context of what they're being measured on and held accountable for, looking at where the insights of the data points fit into that to give them permission to step into something more, or to give them the opportunity to learn and grow by doing things that they haven't done before, or building a skill they haven't utilized, or retraining something they've used in a way that doesn't support them anymore. So all of these are why these are inflection points. Okay. So none of them in by themselves is an answer. They come together. Does that help, Joanna, with the answer? I don't know where your head's moving. Let me see. Where did you move to when you're
here?
You're here somewhere. I can hear your voice, and I know. Oh, there. I see you now. Okay, I see you now. Anyway, is that helpful for you and then for others?
I'm gonna have to listen to that again.
Okay.
I'm still kind of landing. Yeah.
Okay. And be sure to come back to us. Now you had a second question as well.
Well, the second question is, in the midst of all of this, the person's actually you're going through all of this, and there's this need perhaps to address something that's just coming up right now for the coachee, right? So there's this element of the context of the day, the issue of the day, what I'm dealing with now, and the joining together of the review of all these of the assessments. And I was curious about how you see that working in terms of how to devote time in a session.
Walk me through your question one more time. I feel like I've got two different ways to go with it, and I'm not 100% sure. I want to hone in on your exact question. I apologize.
So you're starting a coaching process with someone.
Yep.
They have expectations of what this is going to be about, that they've heard about for what coaching is. I would assume think that they're going to jump in straight away with someone who's going to help them navigate the issues of the day. And we are going to be taking them through a whole load of these assessments. So I'm curious how you manage those expectations of what we do today, let's say, what's going on.
Well, okay, great question. Here there are several things that we do, and I'll begin the question, and then Rich, please step in. We have, and Gisela put the image of it that all of them have. When we have the image of the 7 pillars, and we have the wheel, and we have the path, what we're doing from the very first conversation we're having with our coaching clients is helping them, because many of them have never done this before, or they certainly haven't done intelligent leadership. So they don't know what to expect. So we're collaborating together on what their vision or perception of it is, with the journey of what we're going to be walking them through, so that we get in alignment together. So we've got a visual of kind of the journey.
Okay.
We've got the pillars that walk them through, and then we've got the path of it, with the awareness and the assessment and the action. And so we're guiding them through. And this is why I say that every single time I meet with my coaching clients, I in the beginning, we walk through it just to remind them of where we are and what we're doing. Because even though we have the framework that Gisela showed that's in the chat, and that you've got your level 2 Google Drive folder, the rhythm of you working with your coaching client is going to vary somewhat based on who they are, what they're being measured on. And so it's not that you're going to say, okay, well, the first week we're going to do this, the second week we're going to do this. It may not be that. What you're going to do as their coach is you're going to look at the rhythm of what this falls into as you're creating the plan together. So we don't say you have to have this done this day, then this day, and then that day. We create the journey and the path they go on, and you work with them to determine that. However, it's very important that what we do, to your point, is we set expectations. We ask them what their understanding is, so we understand where they're coming from. We guide them into there, and we get in alignment with them, which will be unique to everyone. Is that helpful?
Yeah, thank you.
That's why we create so many pictures. That's why we've got the journey path. That's why we've got the wheel. That's why we've got the pillars. Okay, to help them and to set expectations, and to give reasons why we do the things. Rich, would you like to complement that with anything?
Yeah, I just dropped into chat, that IL behavioral interview. Some of these things, Joanna, that you're asking about setting time frames or time limits and things like that really come back to that initial rules of engagement, right? That we're going to set those people, the IL behavioral interview. How does, what is this going to be most effective for you as far as time goes? What's going to be the best times that we can meet? And really setting down those initial rules of engagement. I got to tell you, I got a email yesterday, Joanna, from one of the HR folks here in the United States with Santander. One of their questions was around this very thing. What is the time constraints? How can we work through this? And then one of the things that they did not want to see, and this is a very specific comment, we do not want to have our people having to log into a platform and do a work on a platform. They do not want that. And especially here in the US, they're like, those do not work for us. And so, this is one of those things that they do understand, that there is going to be a time commitment around this. And part of that too is really those initial chemistry calls, and that initial IL behavioral thing is setting those ground rules, right? What's going to be best for us as a relationship? What works, what you and I could do, Joanna, in a coaching relationship might be completely different than what Florian and I could do, right? Or what Tim and I can do, or what Susie and I can do. As far as their commitments into their job and what times that I have to really work through this, and then making sure the expectations up front, they know what to expect. So does that help, Joanna?
Yeah, yes, I think there will be, as you say, a range of expectations. We need to be
And it's
very
not
much
not
sensitive.
all, and yeah, I guarantee everyone here really knows one size doesn't fit all, right? It's all different. It's all different, and we all know that one assessment results don't fit everybody. It's just one of those things that it takes time. I got to tell you, Joanna, there's a reason why John is the world's top executive coach. There's a reason why he works with the people he does. And Lance, I don't know if Lance Hazard's still on here. I think he had to drop off, but Lance works with John on several big profile things, and is working on one right now with John. So he can tell you you have to work around things, right?
Yeah. And there's another point. I mean, for the sake of what am I going to be pulling the threads and connecting the dots? It's just producing these layers of insight around what's happening or why something is showing up. I feel there's a piece there that I need to be able to get better at expressing. No, why? So if we look at this, and then we're going back to the MELI, this adds value because is one needs to be very clear how to express that.
Sure. Very well said. Fabiola, I'm not going to try to put you off, but I am going to ask a question. I have completely underperformed at having us take a break at the top of the hour, as you can all see. So we are well over that, and you have all been very gracious and very patient. First, I'm going to ask Fabiola if you would be open to having your question answered after a break. And because you're so gracious at doing that, you get to determine if our break is 5 minutes or 10 minutes. All right, 10 minutes. Okay. She's made everybody else happy, and you're all going like this, please let me go. Okay. So it's 10:37 Eastern time. At 10:47 Eastern time, we're going to come back on. And I thank you all very much. And Fabiola, we will start with you with your question. Thank you all for being so patient. Started again. Here we go. Recording got started. And Fabiola, before, because you're eating a bite of food, I'm going to answer a question very, very quickly. I was starting to write the answer in chat, and I'm going to go ahead and share it with Shalou asked a question that's a very legitimate question. When you see the number of respondents we would prefer for you to be able to have in each one of the categories, other than supervisor, but there's direct reports, indirect reports, peers and others, we would, the larger the pool, the better for anonymity and everything like that. It's reasonable that you would not always have 10 or more in each of those categories or 6 or more. What we want to do is be a blend of being as inclusive as possible, not a popularity contest. We want to have the right people, but also not bringing people in who aren't in the best position to be able to respond effectively and impactfully. For example, what Rich was saying, where there was the COO didn't really know how to be able to provide insight because they didn't have any lens to that. So this is where, from our very first conversations with our coaching client, even before we're actively building the stakeholder pool, we're listening for and we're asking questions about people who could potentially be stakeholders. We're also then working with our coaching client to think outside the box of who other people for this can be. Some people have also asked the question, can it be a family member? In some cases, it can be a family member, but just for the sake of doing it, we're not having your mom just for the sake of doing it. But there are times when a family member is a very good one of the others. So we don't necessarily exclude that. So I hope that's helpful. And Shalou, I hope your voice gets better soon and you're feeling much better. All right, Fabiola, you've been through the break. You've gotten something to eat. You're all ready to go. Let's go. What's your question?
Okay. It's more like a petition, like that, as a question.
Okay.
Here's the thing. We have been with you and with Rich with the science of this methodology that is incredible, robust.
Okay.
And I need to see the part of the art of this. So how about if you can explore some videos in which you and Rich made debrief this to assessments with clients. So in that way, we can harvest our own language to enrich our repertoire on that.
Excellent. I think that's a great idea. Rich,
Yes.
how about it? Do those?
Yep, I agree. A lot of requests for that. So yes, we can put that together.
Okay, so hang on. We're going to fix that. Okay. Anybody who thinks that's a good idea, go down to the reactions and put a little thumbs up and we'll take a picture.
Yeah.
All right, let's go. I'm going to take a picture here pretty soon. Oh, yeah. Oh, we got Sven's got oh, yeah. You guys have them going. Oh, this is good. Oh, all right. I think we're good. Thank you very much for that. Point well taken. And seeing it real life, and Rich and I will be glad to do that and get other team members. So we're walking through giving you examples of it. It's great to see it in action. One of the things that we do in our normal training that would be wait a minute. What? Oh, that's you sharing. Okay. Okay. I was like, where did that come from? One of the things that we normally do is when we're normally teaching this, we actually do that. I give you homework. You go with the MLEI, you go with the 360, you do them, and then we collectively, you pull the threads. So we have you walk through doing all of that. So yes, so in our normal training where it's like twice as long, you'd be doing that. So we're not doing that in this case, but we will create those videos for you. And then what may be a great thing for us to do is to create a little workshop to do some role playing. So if that's something that would be good, either you guys can do that together in your own cohorts and practice that and get back to us, or we can all do something like that. So Rich, it looks like you have something you wanted to share.
That's not me sharing.
Well, that's not me sharing. So who's sharing?
Susie Warman is sharing.
Okay, Susie, what are you sharing?
What am I sharing?
Well, you're sharing your screen. I don't know why, but you're sharing your screen.
Are you serious? I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. You didn't know you were.
It's all good.
It's all good.
I was looking for some good pictures of where
I
your
could.
dogs-
We're looking for something exciting. All right, we're going to transition now into the Leader Watch survey. And this is so fabulous. This is, first of all, I've always talked about attraction, not promotion. I was in the role of sales for software to very, very large companies for many years. And I said I never sold anything. I prepared people to buy. I wanted to understand what their issues were. I wanted to understand what success looked like for them. And I wanted to connect our solution to what that looked like for them. I never wanted to sell them on a feature. I never wanted to try to get them to do what I wanted. It was always, what is their agenda and how do I serve them? And that's the lens through which I look at life, which is why my core purpose statement is I help people become their greatest, leading themselves and others. So as you're looking at core purpose statements, mine has had multiple iterations over the years, and this is the one that I came with. So at any rate, when we talk about the intelligent leadership process, and whether you're working with the coaches in Santander or you're working with others, we invite them into the value of something multiple times. There are areas where the whole philosophy around intelligent leadership is different, and they wouldn't know that, and you wouldn't know that now, but it's different than things that they would learn someplace else. So that through the context of the lens of Santander, where the agreement has already been identified, what you're going to be helping them step into that they may not be aware of and have never had context around is how valuable it is once you've identified how you're naturally wired to view the world. Understanding a little bit more about why you show up the way you do, the interpretive report. Then, who are you in the world? The core purpose statement. How today are you seen by others based on all of the things that you've brought with you in today, uninformed about everything that people are seeing you from where you were, what you're being measured on and held accountable for, and how we take that, bring all of these things together, and then work with you for about 3 months. We're going to create the development plan, work with you, and then we're going to measure how maturely you're being able to do this. And what your coaching clients don't necessarily know is that this is pretty unique to the intelligent leadership. Most other programs don't do that. Independently of whether anybody else does it or not, what's valuable for you to set the expectation of with your coaching client is we're not just doing this as a one and done. We are on a journey together, which is why the picture is a roadmap, which is why we look at the pillars and talk about them not being linear and that you're all done. Is that when we get to Leader Watch, the stakeholders who we've said you are so valuable to this process, and we've told them that, this is my core purpose statement. This is what I'm being measured on and held accountable for. These are the things that I'm going to be working on for the next 3 months. They're able to invest of themselves in that. And they've already started the journey by being a part of the 360 process. Now we're coming back. We're respecting the stakeholders by coming back to them to say, hey, you've been with this coaching client through this journey. Quick question. No, we're certainly not going to go back to that robust, detailed STLI 360. That was a lot. But we want to just check in. There were a few things that were the highest and most valuable things for this coaching client to work on. We want to follow up with those. How are they doing? Because then they're going to go back and they're going to keep working on it. And we value your opinion. So when we're looking at the Leader Watch survey, it's as much for us to have the stakeholders understand the importance of them being invested in it as it is for our coaching client to understand the importance of working toward this as their measurement. Does all this make sense? Okay. Because we want the stakeholders are such valuable voices. And when they didn't know what it was they were doing and they did this initial 360, woo, big job. What they were doing is creating the foundation of this powerful, powerful growth and development of this coaching client. And because it's Santander, because so many are going to be doing it, the energy around it is going to be so much better because everybody's talking about, well, I'm doing this and I'm doing this, and they're growing together and they're able to see how powerful this can be. So when we look at the Leader Watch survey, well, it's very short, and I'm going to begin by actually showing you a Leader Watch survey, a completed Leader Watch survey. So you see just how brief that it is, but how profound and rich it is. And then we're going to back into the rest of it. Okay. All right, so let's get started with this because this is, you know, like to me, it's like you get dessert after you've eaten your dinner and you made sure you ate all your vegetables kind of a thing. You get the dessert, then you get to figure out the next thing. So here we go. We're going to share what a Leader Watch set of survey results is. All right. So we have the who each one of the people responding is. Okay. Then again, we really want to get as many people as possible to respond to it. So we're showing you one where, you know, not everybody was in there. All right. We're going to, in the Leader Watch survey, there are going to be either 3 or 4 questions. Very straightforward. Because when we get to the individual leadership development plan, you can only work on like 3 things at a time, right? 3 or 4 things at a time over a 3-month period. You can't work on 27 things, which is why we prioritize the most impactful things that they can be working on. So we've worked with them through the lens of what we've learned from the stakeholders, through what they're being measured on and held accountable for, as what are going to be the most impactful things for them to work on. That's what the individual leadership development plan is building for them. And that's what they're sharing with the stakeholders. And that's what they're focused on for the first 3 months. At the end of that 3 months, they're going to say, they're going to come back and we're going to say, well, how did we do? In the last 3 months, do you feel the leader has become more or less effective with regards to this development goal? All right. Drive for results. This is what came out of the individual leadership development plan that the coaching client said that they were going to be working on for 3 months. So this is what they were working on. It's a strength of theirs. Because when you work on something from a coaching relationship, you work on strengths. You also work on where you've got gaps. That's reasonable. All right. So this is what it is. So here is the ratings. Now, some of you in the group are statisticians and you would understand this. I'm not going to ask you. We'll go through it in the presentation. You'll learn a little bit more about it. But snapshot, very quick snapshot, the rating. Lowest score was a 1. Highest score was a 3. The average was a 2. How much did it lean one way or the other? There were 8 respondents. Okay. Then we got anonymous comments. Okay. Insights. And our stakeholders were taught how to provide anonymous comments in the 360, in the original 360. And so they're able to go through and provide valuable insights. Right? Done an excellent job navigating through change, uncertainty, and disruption. Communicated openly and honestly. The recent employee surveys prove leadership has improved morale. Wow. Wouldn't that be nice to be able to see at the 3 months? Making good progress in redefining it. Okay. All right. Then we've also got some place, well, you know, hey, got a little room to grow. Okay. So see how in a quick snapshot, how insightful these are? All right. Then in the last 3 months, all right, this is the next developmental goal. Developmental need, strategic thinking. This is what, all of this is what came out of the individual leadership development plan. Okay. To become more effective. I mean, these are the things that I need to do. So, hey, everybody, how did I do in the last 3 months in this specific area? All right. Again, quite a discrepancy, 1 to 3. And you're going to see all the details behind this. Okay. So not consistent, not consistent. All right. But, all right. You got kind of that's a nice positive comment. Okay. There you go. You got something positive. Okay. Okay. Increased involvement. Okay. 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 So insights. All right. Insights. And then the final one, developmental goal, change management. Okay, this is what it was. Very straightforward. Wow, from 0 to 3. That's interesting. Quite a bit of variance. Okay. All right. Although the communication is sometimes still not clear as to what the message is. A lot of words, but not a clear message. Well, how insightful is that? And how helpful is that? So it really gets some insights into that. All right. And then there's change management. So when you look at it overall, okay, there's summary of the total of it. Okay. All right. From a -3 to a +3, 1.75. So, not quite in the middle. Here we go. We got some good. We got some work to do, but we're making some progress. Then let me stop share. Then when you get these, and we're going to walk through how to do this, but when you get this and you work with them, then you're able to go back into the MLEI, the 360, the individual leadership development plan. What are we going to keep working on? What are we going to add? Where do you feel strong enough in what the results have shown from LeaderWatch that you can take something out of what you're going to be focusing on there and go back and get something else that's important for you to be adding to it? So all of these are great inflection points. Okay. So as you see, subset, very brief subset of it. Okay. And now I'm going to quickly show you what the actual survey looks like, and then we'll kind of go through the presentation. So here's an example. Okay. Now, again, you are going to work with your coaching client to have the non-generic question and the non-generic email, but very straightforward. Name of the leader, their relationship, where have they been? So called the Likert scale. It's more effective, less effective, and then the comments. Very straightforward. Okay. Development, it goes 1, 2, 3, or 4. The most you can have is 4. Very straightforward. Just how well are they doing and what are the comments? How well are they doing? What are the comments? All right. Now, the power of this comes in when you have set expectations with a stakeholder pool from the very beginning in those initial conversations that we're going to have you participate initially in the STLI 360. And then down the road, we're going to have you come back and do another mini 360. You can show them the results of this as well, so that their expectation is we honor you and you're part of the relationship. So we're going to come back. We're going to take the input that you've provided us. We're going to work on this, and we're going to come back and we're going to be measuring it. We're going to ask you. So your stakeholder pool understands that they're in this for the long haul as well, because part of what you want in a stakeholder is someone who's willing to be a part of that. Somebody may say, I might do one survey, but I'm not going to come back and do this. I'm not going to focus on that. I don't want to be that. But they understand in the very beginning, so you're not surprised down the road. You want to make sure that your stakeholders understand. And it's not a big investment of time down the road. And most of them, I mean, I don't know, I haven't ever had, Rich, have you ever had a stakeholder who said, no, I'll do the 360, but I'm not going to stay in it for that? I haven't ever had anybody.
No.
I mean, most of them are like, nobody's ever asked me this before. Nobody's ever framed it this way. This is really wonderful. Because they see that the coaching client is taking it seriously. And they see that this process is respecting it. These are the things that draw other people to wanting to be coached. So it's a very powerful component of it. All right. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to walk you kind of through the presentation of it so you see what's behind it and you see how powerfully it works. And I'm so excited when we because we're going to do the ILDP next, aren't we, Rich? That's the next training. Okay, there we go. All right. Love it. All right. So let's go into the, here we go. Pull up John's smiling face. All right. And again, you're going to be getting all of these. So if I don't prioritize a slide, if you've got a question, please don't hesitate to ask. But you're going to be getting all of these. And a lot of the things are things that are pretty straightforward for you. But do make sure that if there's anything you've got questions on. All right. John is very, 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 very firm on a blend of specific measurement and application. You know, prescription diagnosis. Well, you can't do the prescription without the diagnosis. And it also helps quantify the ROI of coaching. And so when if your coaching client is ever wondering, you know, well, how, you know, is this really making a difference? Is it really moving the needle? The LeaderWatch survey shows them that yes, it's moving the needle. So these are the kinds of things that are helpful for everybody as a part of the process. Okay. So when we talked about the 4 phases, the awareness, the assessment, the action, and then now we're in the achievement part, and then we're going to be cycling back around again. All right, let's take a look and see what it is. All right. So again, this was custom created to be able to go to the coaches and the stakeholders, and this is part of the stakeholders of the supervisors of the coaching client, so that what is measured will improve. They can see their improvement, they're measuring it, and they can continue to move forward because then they know that this is making a difference. It can be seen, and they keep going. And to the point that was raised earlier about the languages, it's currently available in English, Spanish, Italian, and Turkish. This might be a great one for us to work with you because it's a smaller survey, for us to get it in. And Carlos, you're part of the volunteer committee, but for all of you to consider other languages we would want to have this in. So it's very straightforward, and by seeing it already, you get that. So when we talk about the Likert scale, and I usually kind of have a conversation with people to see how many people are familiar with it, but it's pretty straightforward that it's just, you know, to what degree have they improved, if any. We want it to be as many of the original stakeholders as possible. And it's no more than 4 development opportunities to either continue to strengthen or to focus on something that's a priority. And the Likert scale was used because it's pretty straightforward. And it's, you know, this is just a very short, very small scale. But it's like, where on the needle are they? And when we go through the concept of it, you saw how easy it was visually to see what the improvement or lack of improvement had been. So when we look at why it's important, we're coming back to what we talked about. That equal sign, we want intent and impact to be equal. And if not, to what degree are they not equal? Where are we improving? So we know where to go back to specifically to improve. So we're going to say is we want it to get as close to equal as possible and figure out what behaviors we want to continue to improve so that we get in alignment, or if we've already gotten them in alignment, that we then add that to make sure that and let me stop share for a moment. As I'm preaching to the choir here, what you already know is when you have a new behavior, what we want to do is to continually refine it because it's replacing a prior behavior that had become unconscious, that they weren't aware of, and it wasn't supporting them anymore. So when we raise to our level of awareness that which doesn't support us, and we replace it with what currently does, it's important to continue to reinforce it intentionally until it becomes our new unconscious pattern of behavior. And then there may be a day when you're either revalidating that or where you're going, yep, I'm good. But we need to get awareness of the old so we can be a choice to replace it with the new. And that's what this helps us do. And when the coaching client understands that and sees that, they're like, oh, aha, because we've already invited them to know that it's reasonable that there may be a reason that they're not as healthy or as strong in something. There are a number of reasons for it. And how do we help them now move forward in the most healthy way to strengthen what that is? Intent and impact. All right. So then when we're talking about it, these again, so I love this last point, and you understand already what these points are, but it is an aspirational mirror for the coachee because it shows them how far they've come in just 3 months, what they've been able to do based on having more clarity about how they're naturally wired, where their natural strengths and challenges are, how they've shown up previously and what actions they can be specifically taken toward that, how they prioritize those based on what they're being measured on and held accountable for, and then how they run that through the alignment of who they are in their core purpose statement. Everything runs through that. So they feel better. They're not playing dress up in somebody else's life. They're living their own life and they're stepping more fully into the potential of who they are as, and they can see more clearly who they are becoming and who they can become. And it inspires them to be a choice to continue the journey and to go through, as I call, the messy middle. That, and I'll stop again for a moment. All of us have been through, I'm not going to have a show of hands. We already have, all of us have been through in our lives the messy middle. We've been through where we're going through change, and it's difficult. Even when we don't like something, it's the old familiar and it's easier than going through the change or maintaining it because it takes so much longer. It's more steps and it's not automatic. When we have this wonderful, beautiful reinforcement, when we're in the messy middle of going through change, of why this is making a difference, of seeing the material, visual representation that what I'm doing makes a difference, it's an aspirational mirror to keep going, to say, I am making a difference. It is making an impact. It may still seem messy to me and it's not natural yet and all of those things, but others are seeing it in me and I choose to keep going through this. And it really, really helps with that. It's such a powerful inflection point for them. That you can read that. These are things we've already kind of talked about. All right. One of the things that's another great part of it, and there are direct and indirect components of what we do with these. And this is one of the things that's a powerful indirect one, is that, let me stop share again for a moment. When we're working with our coaching clients, one of the things I always ask them is, who are 3 to 5 people, I'm sure you do the same thing, who are strategic for you to have a relationship with, who you either don't have one yet, you don't have a great one yet, or you have one and you want to continue to strengthen. Okay, right? So we're learning who around them they want to develop relationships. Some of it could be because they want that next role, and in order for them to get that next role, they got to be in the goods with someone else. Well, the intelligent leadership process is such a responsible process that it gives them every reason in the world to reach out to those people to say, I'm working on this. I'd really like to have a conversation with you to get a lens into how you feel I'm doing, insights into where you think I could be continuing to grow, and things like, and help you know what it is I'm doing. So it's a great permission opportunity for them to begin the process of developing relationships where they don't already have them, strengthening the ones where they do, and strengthening the relationships they have in the organization from a leadership perspective. So by using these components, they're great ways to get access to people. Like, who's going to say no when you want to come and do these things? I've talked to coaching clients, and it's just wonderful that they get access to the CEO. They're like, well, you know what? I'd like to do that. So they ask. You don't ask, you don't get. So you do it in a responsible way, but it's inviting them into the consideration of this, not just because you could use it as that, but because it makes sense. And that when you have the lens of someone else giving you insights that you may not have had been exposed to, it helps you as you're defining of the coaching client. It helps as they're defining how they're building and what they're doing. So there are direct and indirect ways that this is a very, very powerful assessment for them. And this is one of the things, is nurturing and strengthening existing relationships and the opportunity to build new relationships that they haven't already developed. And then checking in with their stakeholders and revalidating with their stakeholders the responsibility that they have, and recognizing the respect they have for their stakeholders of being with them on their journey. All right. We talked about that. You got all that. Okay. Let's walk through this, and then we're going to keep walking through how the survey goes. So we talk about the Leader Watch as part of, it's one of the steps of the pillars. However, the introduction to the value of what it is starts in the very beginning. What is measured will improve. That as we go through this, all of the 4 phases and all of the pillars of this, one of our goals is continuously evolving, continuously measuring where we are in our improvement. So we're not just working on something and hoping for the best. We're intentionally from the very, very beginning going through that. So we identify way up front with our coaching client and then with all the stakeholders. And I've got coaching clients, and they use this when they're talking to the stakeholders because we've talked them through it and they understand it. And it invites the stakeholders to understand the value of it and to understand, and they go through the wheel so that they've got the lens through it as well. We also want them to be able to see through curiosity and through what else is possible and through stepping into becoming their best. This quote I think is so powerful. May your choices reflect your hopes, not your fears. So we're getting insights into where we are and to where we can be most easily and most impactfully become, and getting support along the way so that, oh yes, and let me add one more thing before I get to the so that. When our choices reflect our hopes, it's because we've got more clarity living through our purpose. And this is where our purpose is guiding us. And when we don't have a clear purpose, we're more inclined to be able to go back to that old familiar, where our fears were, where our uncertainties were, where the judgment was, where the doubt is. And even when we're not completely transitioned into living fully from our core purpose statement, when we have it as an anchor, when we have all of these other components, it helps us continue to look forward. And when we're in that messy middle and it's more challenging and we've got those dark moments, we come back and we've got great anchors, and it's easier for us also to have conversations, whether your coaching client's having it with you or they're reaching out to someone else on their team and they have a legitimate reason to, where the team member would absolutely want to be supporting them. So in that awareness phase, we're getting the clarity of it. And again, all of these are pretty straightforward. So I'm not going to walk through each one of these points, but these are the components of it. And, you know, to the point about doing a video, Rich, when we do it, we'll be showing you examples of what these are. Okay. In the understanding of the who, all right, who we are, and this is so valuable for us. In the MLEI, who we naturally are, how we naturally are wired to view the world. And also who we have the potential to become, because we may not have been aware of it, which is reasonable. We may have been put in a box that's legitimate. Most of us have been. I know I was, where we had other parts of ourselves that we never explored, or we started to explore and somebody said, don't do that. And we didn't. And now we've got this amazing gift of the potential and possibilities of exploring things. But when in the beginning, when you do that, you're like a puppy dog with long legs and big paws, and you're not necessarily sure what to do with it. And through the structure of the MLEI interpretive guide, through the structure of what we're being measured on and held accountable for, through the structure of the 360, we begin to hone in and get strength and confidence in what we're saying and what we're doing. The how, okay, then when we explode out how we're seen by others, right? This point right here is the most important part here. The vulnerable, whoopsie, back up. Sorry, I was trying to highlight it. It may not let me do that. Nope. All right. The vulnerability for our coachee. Us doing everything we possibly can to figure out how we help our coaching client. And you guys already know this. You're so mature already. You're such strong coaches already. This is innate to you. The more that we invite our coaching clients into being able to be vulnerable, and I sometimes I don't use the word vulnerable culturally. Let me stop share for just a moment. I will often, instead of using the phrase be vulnerable, I talk about that in giving yourself permission to become who you're meant to be. Which means that you're open to without judgment, you're open to be say, well, yeah, do it. For some people, that word. So you'll work with your coaching client to figure out what language you use, what words you use, because some of these words are not the words that would be best. And that's what you already know those things. We want them to be in the best position to be open and to be candid, to be able to say, whoo, yeah, not so well. I'm not doing that so well. Or, or to be able to get, because we need them to dig deep into the cause, the underneath of why something shows up the way that it is. So we've got all these data points and we're giving them permission to go there. And we ask them questions so that they can finally get there, because it's from that place where they then are at choice to replace what the old was with what the new is. And that's what we're doing. We're continuing to do with them. All right. So then in the assessment, there are components for both us as well as for our coachee. Then we take it over into the action phase. And what's going to happen is that when we harness the insights from the 3 or 4 questions that we ask in the Leader Watch, we're then going to go back into the individual leadership development plan. We're going to look at what we had created. We're going to look at the areas that we want to continue to prioritize that were already there. We're going to look at where we feel like we're pretty well along with something, and what are we going to replace that with as we go through the next 3 months. So we go back into the individual leadership development plan to harness the other things that did not make that first cut, that weren't the number one most important things to do. And now we've got more clarity and we can add more texture to what we're going to add into what we plan on doing for the next 3 months, that we're then going to measure with Leader Watch at the end of that next 3 months. And then we're going to communicate that out to the rest of the stakeholders and others who we're working with, because we'll be communicating it to other people who are not the stakeholders as well. But we're communicating that out so other people have clarity on knowing how to be able to support us. And because we feel more confident now sharing things that I recognize this was not an area that I had been prioritizing as well, and I didn't have the understanding of what to be doing, I'm learning these things so that I can be doing it. And again, it gives them a great reason to reach out to other resources they want to connect with and say, I'm focusing on this. Do you have any insights into ways that I can be maturing even more impactfully in this area based on your experience? So a lot of different ways for all of these things to strengthen them within the group they're with and with others who they want to develop relationships with. Right. And what ultimately happens is their new patterns of belief, their new patterns of behavior become their unconscious beliefs and their unconscious behaviors. And yet, what we're also teaching them is we've taught them that what got them here isn't necessarily going to get them there. We've taught them that we have ways to help you get from here to there. We've shown you the process of that. We've also shown you that when you get to the end of doing this, you may not fully be there. So you want to come back. So we're teaching them not to do this and stop. Because then you just have another set of unconscious behaviors and beliefs that you'll someday maybe outgrow, and you don't have the discipline or the awareness to go back and check back into those. So we'll check. So we're teaching them. So what an amazing gift. And this so often, I have coaching clients where they translate that into their personal lives, and it shifts things that are huge inflection points for them outside their work environment. So then they get excited about it. Where else can I look at it? What else can I be doing? So part of what we're doing through the context of what we're doing in this professional setting is also very helpful for them in other areas of their lives. And it's so rewarding to hear it when they have the insights. All right, so then in the calibration of what they're doing is that they're going to go through this, then they're going to come back and do it for the next phase and the next phase. So they're going to go through usually about 3 phases. It depends. Some of them will go through 4 phases. It depends on how long the coaching journey is. It's usually about 3 months because it takes time to make change. So the first phase is about the first 3 months of the coaching after they've done the assessments and pieces of it. All right. Then they debrief it. Then they create their next process of going through that. Then they communicate all of that. And then we look at how we're strengthening and how we're adding to it so that they continue to grow and to strengthen. All right. All right. So now let's go to the next piece of this. All right. Let's talk about implementing it. We've already shared about this. All right. The fourth point where we talk about the accountability. By now, our coaching client should be able to be accountable for knowing the importance of getting the email out, knowing the importance of engaging when communicating with the stakeholder pool, knowing all those components. So in the process of it, we put that on the coaching client to do, and we follow up with them and we support them. But we want this to be something that they're initiating with their stakeholder pool, and that they're identifying the process of it. And especially if we have any new stakeholders, and even if we've got the same ones, they haven't done the survey for several months, we want to make sure that all the stakeholders are comfortable with the anonymity, and that the same offer resides there, that if they would feel more comfortable sharing something with us that they can't share comfortably anonymously directly in the survey, that they know that they can do that. And we teach them what anonymity is if it's a new stakeholder, so that they're being put in the best position to be able to provide the most valuable for it. Nothing different about confidence.
Can I jump in here real quick?
Yeah.
There's a lot of questions around that, what you just said.
Okay.
In chat. It is not, the client is not going out there and getting the results. They're not providing the questions. There's a link that is sent out. The link, they'll take the survey. We will print off the results and get those back out. But again, it's not, just to clarify, it's not the client who is asking or giving them the questions to answer. It's simply a survey link.
Here's what the client did. Thank you very much, Rich, and I sincerely apologize. Let me please clarify that. And we'll show it in the slides a little bit. What we're asking the coaching client to do, because they've got their individual leadership development plan, they're putting together the 3 to 4 questions based on their individual leadership development plan. They're creating the email based on the framework of what they already know the email should be, for the anonymity to the stakeholders for doing it. We're asking them to put that together. We're asking them to inform the stakeholders that this is going to start. We're giving them the link to the actual survey, but then the survey is going to last for a couple of weeks, and we're having them reach out to say, make sure that you're responsible with that. Okay. So we're putting them more in the driver's seat of creating the insights for that. But no, the coaching, the stakeholders click on a link that we provide, and then we get all of the assessment results, which we share with you. And then you share them with that. So thank you, Rich, for having me go back to clarify that. Okay. Thank you. All right. Well, right exactly where we are. All right. So now we'll walk through the details of this is. All right. Just like
Rocio's got a quick question, Sue.
Okay, let me come back to that. Yes, Rocio.
I think maybe you're going to go to that, but I didn't understand. We gathered the emails of the stakeholders that are going to participate.
Yes, I am getting ready to go through that. Would you do me a favor and hold me accountable to answering your question? This is the exact spot we're in right now. So thank you very much for asking that, and hold me accountable, and I'll make sure we get that answered for you. Okay. All right. When we're administrating the survey, all right, It's very much like the original survey in the process of it. So we're going to be we're going to be working with our coaching client to reconfirm the stakeholder pool. And again, we want as many stakeholders as possible that were from the other part. We've already set the expectation from early in the coaching process with our coaching client that if any of the stakeholders is no longer in that position, as soon as possible, we introduce the stakeholder that replaced them. Like with Rich's example, it was a COO. The new COO, we have the coaching client have a conversation with the COO way before it gets time to the leader watch, to kind of get them brought up to speed with what's been going on, so that by the time that survey is being conducted for the leader watch, that they're more inclined to feel that they're confident in supporting it. They absolutely can say, I don't feel confident and I'm not going to do it. And that's reasonable. However, we're doing everything we can to put them in that position. So in the process of doing the leader watch survey, we've got on the Google Drive folder, we have, again, the framework of an email that they will customize. And again, it's really great if they reach out specifically and directly to each one of the stakeholders to thank them ahead of time for their investment of time, to remind them that this is a very brief survey, to perhaps show them the example of it and walk them through it so they understand the difference in it, and that it's just a quick check-in, but it's because we've honored the fact that they've been on the journey and we've been working toward this. We want to measure, because what's measured will improve. And then we're going to agree on the timing for it. And then we're going to send out the invitations for it. And we get notified if they're, just like with the first 360, we get notified if there are any surveys that go out and they're not successfully received. So once they're successfully received and we let our coaching client know that, we ask them to go ahead and send out a confirmation that says, thank you very much. We understand you've received the survey and we appreciate you getting this done before X date, which you've already set the expectation in the welcome email for the launch of what the time frame is. And you're already, and let me come back to you for just a minute, just as you did with the initial 360, you're going to make sure this isn't end of year, quarter end, right at the very final point of something that's really important, so that they have capacity, even though it may only be 20 minutes, but they've got 20 minutes available that they can invest in this. Okay. And by the way, I use the word invest. I'm very specific when I talk with people about, a lot of people say, well, you're going to spend 20 minutes on this. No, when you spend on something, you don't get a return on it. When you invest time in it, and thank you for your investment of time, there's a return. There's a return for the coaching client. There's also a return for the stakeholders, because the better the coaching client is, the better everything is, and the stakeholders are positively impacted. So throughout the coaching journey, I use the word invest a lot, and I'm very aware of that now, because there's value to it. And by the way, just as with the original 360, I will give you updates of how the status is going along the way of how many people have already completed the survey. So you'll have the awareness of that. So you were able to see this mini survey, and this is the customized email that you'll make, and it goes right in there, and it's just very straightforward. They just put that in there and they go through the scale of what it is. All right. And they take the survey. And then what we do is that we want to make sure, and when we talk about go forward suggestions, we want to make sure that we're putting them in the best position to maximize what they've got now and move forward to where they can be either continuing to strengthen something they have been working on, or going back and bringing in something that they hadn't become working on. Okay. And when the stakeholders understand that this is the next inflection point, and that for the next 3 months they're going to be working on something, then everybody involved, and I talk about, again, stakeholders, but also people who you might not have had as, when you see stakeholders, it may not always be just the people who've done the STLI 360 or the Leader Watch survey. It's also people who are involved and engaged with them in their departments or other areas that aren't directly a part of the assessment, but they're part of the coachee's growth and development. So the stakeholders are not limited, and think about with the coach and client that they understand that it's others who surround them as well, that the more those people are informed, the more that they can informally and directly be sharing what that growth and development is, even if they're not part of the formal measurement process. And when we're respecting our stakeholders, it gets them really excited about stepping back into and being a part of the growth and development and identifying where it is so that they can continue to grow. And what we tend to find, let me come back again. What we tend to find in the Leader Watch surveys is there's much more constructive commenting. So they may not have had wonderful growth and everything is great. However, because they're coming back and the stakeholders have seen that they've been working on something, they've been inclusive of what they were doing, they want to be measuring it, they get more granular, they get more specific, they get more constructive in how they're providing the guidance for where their coaching client is and as it moves forward. And it just continues to get better and better over time. Rocio?
Yes, Sue. Still it's not clear, how do we get someone, the names of the people that are going to participate in the Leader Watch?
Hey, Rocio, it's on the STLI 360, the sign up sheet on the 360. So when you do you send that 360 out, and we get the names on the 360. Those are the same people. So the email addresses are going to be on there. Those are the same people you're going to be sending the Leader Watch back to.
Unless we modify.
You're going to revalidate that. I'm sorry, you're going to
Correct.
revalidate that before you
Correct.
actually send it out.
Yes.
You're going to have a check-in to make sure. And this is why, Rocio and everybody else, this is why it's so important for you periodically checking in with your coaching client. Hey, have any of the stakeholders changed? Have any of the stakeholders left? So long before the Leader Watch is going to come out, if somebody's replaced, then talk about what I've already mentioned before, but because you've already got the list from that. So excellent question, Rocio. Does that answer your question?
And that spreadsheet is sent to you, Sue?
Yeah, when you get ready to do it, yes, you're going to send it to me and I'm going to go ahead and launch it for you.
Okay.
Yep,
Sounds good.
absolutely. Mari?
Yes, thank you. As we are going to use stakeholders data, I suppose this is covered by your agreement with Santander regarding GDPR in Europe.
Rich, that's a you
You
question.
heard me?
I'm sorry, I missed
No.
that. I was reading through that.
Okay. So, sorry. Is this covered in your agreement with Santander related to GDPR, as we are going to use the stakeholders' data, emails and names and things like that? If I understood well, we are going to send this out.
We are not here's the thing is yes, they're going to want to know how everybody is improving. However, we're not going to include names.
Okay.
Other than just the client themselves. We're not going to include who their stakeholders are. We're not going to include, because that's kind of, confidential information in a lot of ways. But yes, we will provide to Santander how they're improving, how that client is improving. But the names of the people who have participated, we will not provide that.
My question is related to Leaders Watch. So I
Yes.
understand we are launching the link and we are including there the names of the stakeholders and their email addresses. Is this correct?
Yes, and individually, yes. Well, yeah, we'll be including. That's a good question, Maddie. No, we are not going to include everybody's name on a specific email. We're going to send an email out individually to each one of those people. So it's not just a blast to see. Is that what you're asking?
No, I am an external provider for Santander, for example, and I would have access in the name of John Maton Global to the names and email addresses of the stakeholders of the client. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes, you will.
Okay. In Europe, this is a matter of GDPR. And my question is this covered with the client, with Santander?
Yes, it is. We have gone
Okay.
through, yeah, we have gone through a very significant portal with them on getting qualified and for different things as far as all that is concerned. Yes, so that has been
Thank you.
covered. Those bases have been covered.
Because sometimes people are going in very difficult conversations around that. Thank you.
Right, and yeah, here's the thing: is there has been so much transpired with Santander on getting approval for. I can't even go into the list here because it's been a substantial time commitment to get all that taken care of. So yes, we are covered there now.
Thank you.
Yeah, we had to do that to get approved before they would even look at us signing a contract with them. So.
All right, excellent questions. All right, and I'm very respectful. We're going to be done before noon, so I'm going to walk through some of these and these a little bit more aggressively. And yet, what you already know is this is not the end. So if you've got remaining questions, we will definitely go through these together. So we've kind of walked through the timing of what this is. So we're going to put together what the invitations are. We want this to be done in no more than 14 days, and it shouldn't take more than that because it's very, very brief. And the longer you have something out there, especially with something where they know it's not going to take much time, they keep putting it off. So we've actually had some that'll do it within a week, but no, but you know, the deadline for them is no more than 14 days. And I will be sending out updates on what the status is so that if they need to be checking in with, just like the other 360, they could be checking it into it. All right, so then now we're going to go to the interpretation of it. And I've already shown you one, and we could certainly go back some more, but in the context of it, here's what's behind the calculation. Okay. Is that when we look at what the minimum score, it's the lowest score they were given. The maximum is the highest score. And then the average for all the different responders, however, in this one there were 8, what is the average score between them? Okay. Some of our coaches don't even talk about the standard deviation or the variance. They just prioritize on kind of that quick snapshot. But what it kind of means is, you know, was everybody kind of clustered together, or were they kind of far apart? And what we saw in the original STLI 360 is you know, it was like the 1 to 5, and there were some people who were down at like 1 or 2, and then there were some people that were, you know, pretty far up. So how close are they to each other? And then the last one is based on the average, how far apart are they from the average? And so many people have already done calculations like this. Some of this is not as important. So some coaches and coaching clients want this granular amount of data. For some people, it's just, okay, like kind of how far was I? How well did what I do? Get an insight into that. And then we're not going to walk through these because we're doing something. But here's what I'd like for you to do, because you've got the data. You do these, you ask yourself these questions, or if you get into a cohort, you walk through it, and you've got access to WZ's Leader Watch, and say like, well, what if they were your coachee? What would you be doing? And to your point about us doing a video, Rich, let's use some of this in what we do for the video. And we'll help create some of those so that you've got some insights into it. And then we go to preparing our coachee, just like we prepared for the 360, we're going to prepare them. So they will already have seen what this does. They're going to know before they put this out what this survey is going to be showing them. And one of the things, and let me just stop for a minute. One of the things that I have done with coaching clients is to say, even before we've done, because I want them to step in the vision of what success looks like. Even before we start on that first 3 months where we've done the individual leadership development plan and we're getting ready to launch into that 3 months of coaching, I will ask them, what would you like to read in your Leader Watch survey? What would you like the comments to be? What would you like? What do you think that you're going to have? And we can change these. What do you think the 3 or 4 questions of your Leader Watch survey are going to be? And what would you like people to be saying to you? And I'll actually, like fill this out. What would you like to see? Because when you step them into the vision of where they're going to be, then they see what they're working toward. Does that make sense? So I'll literally step them into the vision of what they want that Leader Watch survey to say to them. And so then as we're going through the 3 months and we're in the middle of the messy middle and we're going through, it's like, well, let's look at what you want your direct reports to be able to say. How are we doing with that? And then it also gives them an inflection point of going back to their direct reports, like, how am I doing with this? Because they can be actually doing many Leader Watch surveys all along the way with the other people who are their stakeholders, because they know what they're being measured on and held accountable for. They can be checking in along the way, and they know what they ultimately want their stakeholders to be able to say when they do the Leader Watch. So what a great way for them to have conversations with people along the way. Does this make sense? So I future pace them into it with the Leader Watch. And along the way, and they're checking in, and they're not telling their stakeholders that I'm giving you a pre-test for the Leader Watch. They're asking legitimate questions because these are the things they already know that they're prioritizing. So what a great way of what is measured will improve. All along the way, they can be informally with the people who they are having their stakeholder, or not even people who are part of their stakeholders, but who they're working with, to be checking in on how they're doing. And it gives them context, and it gives them clarity, and it helps them frame the questions they're asking. Powerful, powerful. Love Leader Watch. So many levels. All right. Now, just like anything else, what we believe we would have done is to have this be something that is not going to be there. There's going to be no resistance. There's nothing that they're going to be, because we've done such a great job and they've progressed so far. However, in the real world, that may not be the case. So what we have already learned during phase 1 is how to be asking the questions and seeing how our coaches respond to change, their areas of resistance, how we've raised their level of awareness of this so they can be focusing on it, so they can be practicing on having different insights into how they respond to things through the lens of understanding themselves and why they may have had resistance before that they don't need to have. So we're helping them practice having a healthier relationship with how they're answering questions. And then we're also looking for where they've stepped into it and where they kind of may not have. So we go back to all of these other components that we've got this rich set of the results from the MLEI and their experiences and their 360 and their core purpose statement. We look at all of the pieces and where they've stepped into vulnerability and their level of awareness. And now we have with them this huge reference reservoir of areas where they've been able to move forward and areas where they're still having some challenges. So we've got more insights into how we go back to these resources to work with them to be able to accelerate as they now move forward. All right. You guys have already got that. All right. Now, one of the things that the great part of having done the 360 before we do this is we see how they naturally have responded to. And what we're going to be working on with them is if they did not respond well to how they received their 360, that's a huge inflection point for us as coaches to how we help them have a healthier relationship with not having judgment, with not having accusation of others, of those things. So that by the time we get to the Leader Watch, we can see how well they've matured in how they receive constructive insights into how they can move forward and validation of what they've been doing. So we're able to leverage what they've done before, work with them over those 3 months to having a very healthy relationship toward that, so that this experience can be a more healthy experience for them. Well, part of what we're learning along the way is when we get to that and we have the leader watch, if they haven't really gotten mature in that, then we as a coach have an opportunity to help them become aware of the fact that they still have opportunities to grow in their maturity for how they deal with constructive insights into areas they could continue to grow. So we prepare, we again get the results before they do. We go back and we put it into context with everything, and we prepare how we're going to review it with them before we do. Then we walk through that, and because we're working on them being in a place of openness, don't necessarily have to use the word vulnerability, but acceptance and openness, and they've had plenty of time now to learn why, and we can say we're using this as an opportunity for you to practice being open to constructive insights and feedback into where you can continue to grow. And there are calibration is how well are we doing? It's like we talk about, I think we've talked about this before where you had it. For those of us who have ever had glasses, you go to the eye doctor and you sit in front of this, it's called a phoropter, and they go, is this better or is this? And sometimes when they do this, it's really fuzzy and it's like, no, not better. This is better. Is this better or is this? And you don't stop. If they say, no, it's not good, you don't stop. You just keep adjusting a little bit, adjusting. So we're continuing as coaches, we're the phoropters. Is this better or is this? Is this better or is this? Is this better? So we're doing this along the way. Then we've got externally with our stakeholders doing that as well. So we've already gotten used to making all of these adjustments and adaptations, and it's a calibration. So we then are going to go back to the individual leadership development plan through the lens of our core purpose statement and harness the next things that we're going to be working on together. Then what they're going to be doing is we're going to be working with them to share their results in a stakeholder meeting, virtually or in person, that walks through it, because this is again an inflection point for the next 3 months. So they're going to be sharing the insights they gathered from the LeaderWatch survey and what they're doing with those. So this is where I've gotten to, this is where I'm moving for. So just like they did the first time with the 360, they're going to go through the same kind of a process to help their stakeholders, formally or informally. And formally means they were a part of the LeaderWatch process, and informally means they're part of the team, but may not have been a part of the LeaderWatch, but they would be invited to the stakeholder meeting for, this is what I'm going to be doing moving forward. So we help them be in the healthiest place to be sharing that with their stakeholders. And then we're there to support them. And, we ask the question, and normally we would ask the question, why is this important? And I think all of you know the answer, but we're there to support them. We're there to, if, this is something we've got more experience with than they do, to answer the kinds of questions, to guide them. So we're able to help them stay confident in what they're doing and to answer questions that may come up that they don't have necessarily the answer for, but to do it in the context of overall. And we also have, and then again, the stakeholders would have them as well, that wheel, and we've got the pillars, and we've got the components of what they've been doing. So we're able to help them share with all of that. So we put all the stakeholders and the coaching client in the best position to say, here's what we've done. Thank you very much. Here's what I'm doing moving forward. I appreciate you continuing on the journey with me. Okay. Woo! All right. Now, when we're doing that, and again, we're going back through here. This is one of the things I think that's most important. If we can't get clarity on who we are, we can't connect to why we're doing what we're doing. And this is why we keep that core purpose statement front and center all the time. For them to succeed with their why, with who they know they cannot not be, they must be committed to what it's going to take for them to get there, to connect with their why, so they become the who they're meant to be. When they achieve their what, this is what opens the door for them to go places they had no idea they could even go, or they had aspirations for, and now they can more clearly see the path to, and see what it's going to take and who it's going to take to be supporting them along the way and keep going through. And this is why intelligent leadership is a blend of the measurement and the activity, the diagnosis and the prescription. Well, it's still before noon, but only by a couple of minutes. But I respect so much that all of you have invested so much of your day, and I appreciate it. As a reminder, like Rich, you and I will prioritize making some videos. We'll get you some of those. I think that's a brilliant idea. I love it. And when you've got questions, please don't hesitate to ask them. I certainly hope this was a valuable investment of your time. It certainly was of mine, and I look forward to our journeying together. Okay. Thanks.
Some quick updates before we go as well. Been asking a lot of questions around this. Chemistry calls. Now that the contract is back in and waiting for the DocuSign to come, as soon as that is done, we work with every individual HR group in all 10 regions that we're doing this with. Once that is done and we start having those conversations and they provide us with those individuals that are going to start the coaching process, that's when we will start providing the coaching bios to the HR group and to the clients. That's when the chemistry calls will start. I anticipate those happening very soon now. As a matter of fact, we have the UK region and the United States region that are just chomping at the bit right now to get coaching started. So that is so, and the same thing with and they're the first two that have reached out. We have other groups that are getting ready to go now. One of the issues that we ran into with this was working with each of the HR groups, and some of them had different coaching groups or coaching organizations they were working with. The contract is very exclusive to John Mattone Global, so that's one of the things that we're working through, getting them transitioned to working with us. So that's coming very quickly. The other question too, Sue is your contact point for all of the assessments. I know that Nina has sent out a lot of information to everybody. There's only two people that have access into the surveys. That's Sue and myself, and we keep it that way to keep the anonymity and the confidentiality to a minimum. So, but Sue is your contact on all of the assessments, including and she can even get you the MLEI. Nina can help also with the MLEI link, but Sue is your primary contact on these things. So, and we will put that out. We'll make sure that is clearly set in the Google Drive. I know it is, but we'll make sure that is clearly set on there and who does what, who do you need to reach out to. Nina is helping me quite a bit on the bios and the Santander project. So she can help with any of that information, but as far as the who does what, it's Sue. Sue is who. So, yeah.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a beautifully blessed rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you showing
Thanks,
up
you
and
too.
being here.
Thank you very
It's
much.
April.
Thank you.
One second. It's April 10, the
Thank you,
same
guys.
thing that
Yeah.
today
Yes.
is part 2.
Yes. April 10th is the same. So
So we
follow.
don't have part 2 yet.
This was part 2 today.
Okay.
Part 1 was the MLEI and the other information.
Oh, so I'm missing the MLE. Okay.
Yeah. So part 1 was the MLEI, the core purpose statement. This is phase 2. We are going over this. And then we are going to have one training all together on the ILDP, how you put that tool together. So, and then we'll put the other videos out for the other information here.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.